Hello, greetings again. So we are back in action once more. This is the 7th of our webinar, and I see people are still joining in. So we will wait for a minute or so till everyone joins. Pan Bahadurji, namaskar. It's great to see that the Nepal team is fully back in action. They've been working very hard. We know that quite well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
we're trying to work hard.
Yeah, no, don't worry. We see Anindo is here from Bangladesh and his team. They are also here. Vericha is here from WHO headquarters also, which is great. Good to have you with us again, Vericha. And of course, Fadi and team is also here, which is great. So let's give it a couple of minutes till everyone else joins in. And then we're good to go. So it's been quite some time since we last met as a group, but I understand that all of you have been having bilaterals with Fadi's team. So that's great. And various teams are now progressing quite well slowly. And just to let you know already in advance, at the end of today's session, I'll take a couple of minutes that there's a few announcements, important announcements that I will sound out to you, and hopefully you'll agree with what I have to say and at the end of today's webinar. And if you agree with that, then we are on a really good number. Okay, just to also give you a background, I have been in touch with the Uganda team, which was having difficulty in keeping pace, but they had and still ongoing, though I've been told it's going down. There's an Ebola outbreak in Uganda. So most of the colleagues who were from the Uganda team, they're part of the infectious disease response team as well. So they got fully engaged with that. I mean, there was no choice, they had to. But I spoke with the focal point, their team lead, and he said it is going down now, and hopefully they would be able to sort of join in and, continue the work, which is very heartening. And I did tell him that try and join today, because we will make a couple of announcements which would give you some additional little bit of time. Okay. So let's get started now, because today is also a very important and pretty hectic session. And Fadi will be in full flow. We have seen the slides he's going to bring on today, so in advance, so we know what's going to happen. So let me bring up my slide and walk you through the agenda for today. Just give me a second. As usual, I'm always looking to see where my slides are. Here we are. Okay. All right, let me get it full screen. And I hope you can see the full screen. So just to say, we are on to webinar 7 out of 8. Great progress, despite giving, 2 additional weeks in the middle to give you more time. We're sort of still on track. So today in webinar 7, it is assuming what happens after the document that you're working on, which is the evidence brief for policy. How do we ensure or facilitate the uptake of it? So this session will be about post-EBP uptake phase, policy dialogues, visualizations, and the critical role of media in this. So it'll be very interesting. So we'll try to understand the key functions and features of what is a policy dialogue, the kinds of stakeholders who should or can and who should participate in a policy dialogue. There'll be a bunch of tips that Fadi and the team would be giving us. And to enhance participants' understanding of data visualization and the role of media in the whole process, and to draft an outreach strategy for the policy brief that you have developed, including potential stakeholders to participate. That will be the hands-on group work that we'll do today. And of course, the Fadi's team will provide some feedback on all the preparatory work till today. By now, we should have started seeing advanced draft of the various policy briefs and try to identify implementation consideration for the various policy options that you might have gone. We know that countries are at slightly different stages for a variety of different reasons, but Fadi will and yourselves can update the whole wider group about that. So after this introduction, you will get feedback on the preparatory work, and Fadi will be leading that session. Then session 13 and 14 are the main plenary sessions for today, organizing a policy dialogue to make best use of what work you have done, and data visualization, the role of media and policy making. That would be tricky and very interesting. Then we will have about 35-40 minutes of individual or group work with support from the team, like we have done in the past, and the faculty will go around to each of the groups to support and dialogue with you. And then we'll do the usual closure with an evaluation poll and some next steps. That's where we'll make some few announcements, which we hope will be interesting for you and you would be in agreement with us. There's one more request from our side. We had received some wonderful photographs from some of the groups which have met in a group for these webinars, or they have had bilateral meetings or their own meetings, and they have sent us photographs. So it will be great if you keep sending those to us still. And especially even today, if you're meeting in a group, please do send us photographs. They're always very interesting to also see and also to send to our donors. So with that, some usual housekeeping notes reminder. Make sure that you have put your name, full name and country in your caption against your name, so that when we are recording and when we are also taking photographs, your name and your country, affiliation, etc. is fully visible. The link to the recording and slides of these sessions will be made available as soon as possible. We always do that. And those who may have missed some earlier sessions, please be reminded that all of this is available on the website and on the links that we have sent you. And if required, we'll send them to you again. Submit your questions or comments in the chat box, and we'll pick them up and channel them to the team, or they will see it themselves and respond. And finally, if you do want to make a verbal intervention, just raise your hand, and whoever is running that session at that point in time will make sure that you get your chance to speak. So with that, I'll stop my share. I hope everything is clear. And then I'll just hand it over to Fadi to take it from here. Over to you, Fadi. And Verichat, once again, thank you for joining.
Good morning, good afternoon. Hope all is well. Thank you so much, Sataya, and thanks for all the content teams for joining today. So just building on what Sataya had mentioned, that we are very advanced in the webinar. In fact, this is the last webinar where we're going to be speaking, giving you material. The last one, it will be simulation. So simulation sense that each group will come and present, and we'll act like policymakers, stakeholders, and we're going to listen to you, and I will give you a comment on your presentation when you make a pitch in terms of the problem and the options. So we'll give you more instruction at the end of the session today for your preparation for the last webinar, because you're going to be leading. Each country team will be presenting on the work that is being done. Today, as I mentioned to you before, that we've worked step by step of how to develop the Every People policy. We're happy that many of the teams are on track in terms of the progress, and we've always asked the question, the so what part. So you might end up again with the document with an Every People policy, but in fact, this is how you can make sure that people read it. How do you make sure that this will be used as an input into decision-making process? How you can make sure that this will be used as the basis for deliberation among different stakeholders group to actually promote collective problem-solving approach or collective decisions or uptake of certain options. So there's a process for that. Now, if you look at the science of knowledge translation, it's very clear that the evidence reaper policy and policy dialogue are the most widely used knowledge translation tools worldwide. So basically, what you have been doing now so far is in the actual document. Now we have to start thinking about the so what, basically the update, how we can ensure that we can this can inform decision. You don't want to do all the work and end up with a document that will end up on the shelf. You want this to be actually the decision support document that can provide input and support decision-making process. This is exactly that the purpose of the session. Now, this session is a bit different. So what we will do, I will discuss about the policy dialogue, what that means. You know, Rasha will come. We'll talk about. We prepare for you a troubleshooting exercise, which actually happened. We do a lot of case studies usually in terms of simulation of how to do policy dialogue, but it's a real case that happened. I wanted to get engaged with you because you will see now in policy dialogue the role of facilitator and the chair of that dialogue is very important. So how to run a successful policy dialogue. We'll talk about that, and then we will have another colleague from K2P, Clara, through a pre-recorded session. We'll actually talk about data visualization. So basically, you know, people sometimes don't read how you can actually, you know, visualize the problem to them, how you can make it really much more appealing. So we have a session on that, and then we will have also our media advisor that will come in and also talk about the role of media, how to engage with media. So again, this session has the dialogue part. It has the data visualization, which we're going to be talking about. Clara will do that, as well as Ryan will be also doing the media engagement. Rasha certainly will be with us throughout the time, leading the troubleshooting exercise as well as with the group work. So this is how we design this session today to make sure that we cover all the elements of what we put in the webinar. Before I start, I want to just more ask each one of the team to actually reflect on the progress. Now, I have to say that we have great meetings this week with the team from Nepal. Fantastic work from them. We gave them detailed comment, and they are working with that. So good job so far. Bangladesh, I know that you sent us yesterday the advanced draft. We didn't have yet the chance to look at it, but we'll expect in the next 2-3 days you will receive also detailed feedback from us as well on this. But we know that you are in track with all the work that you have done based on the feedback we gave you before. But we will listen to you now as well to tell us a little bit more about the feedback. Uganda, Sataya already mentioned, but we're hoping that we will, the team will be back on track on this. I think this is really very critical. It's waste and shame if you get to this level and you're not able to produce, an outline for the elder people policy. So we're ready to keep supporting you to do so. For Malawi, I know we had a meeting. We gave you also a lot of feedback, but still we haven't received a draft from you. We were expecting this week, and please, if you can update us from your end of when we will receive it, because the plan was to receive it this week. We remain committed to give you also feedback once you send it. The one thing I want to mention that is very critical. We will not be able to do the last webinar if the teams are not ready to present. So it's very important because the last webinar is you. It's what you have done, and you are making a pitch. So you'll have a few minutes, and you want to make a case for what you have done, the problem. You want to sell it. You want to convince people about it, and you want to sell your options. So it's very important to make sure that this exercise, this part of this work, is done before you actually go to the last webinar for the simulation. So shall we start by the team of Nepal, perhaps for a briefing a little bit on the progress, where you are at? I know we've talked this week. What is the plan? I know that you promised us next week. You gave us also advanced draft, but if you can, maybe for the whole team, if they can listen to where you are, and then we can go to Bangladesh, Malawi, and Uganda. From the Nepal team, who would like to speak, please? Dr. Kashre, would you like to speak on behalf of Nepal team for updates? Who would like to speak on behalf of Nepal team? I'm not sure if you hear me. Nepal team, who would like to speak?
Oh.
Yes, please, Asha.
Usha, please come on.
Usha, please go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon and namaste to all. Yes, we have a very fantastic meeting on Wednesday. no, not on the 8th, means Tuesday, with the radar team, and radar team has given us some instruction that we are updating how to linkage with the evidence and all. We are searching the evidence on the problem statement that we have stated on the previous portion. So we are on the way, and still it is going on. That's it from Nepal.
Yeah, but can we talk a little bit, Usha, on the process in terms of the for the teamwork? We've seen this draft and we give you, and I think it's good to actually go about the process you had for the engagement, for the searching the evidence, some of the challenges that you already faced, the plan forward. I know you're planning for meeting. If you can give us a little bit more meat on the process, that I think for the other teams.
Yeah.
Also, if you can reflect on the revised problem statement and a bit about the option, it would be good, because next week you are supposed to finalize it. So it's important for us to ensure that everyone is on track.
Yeah, main problem is the member of the Nepal team that's getting means coordinating and means meeting at a place is very difficult, and because they have their own job responsibilities and all. So and at this time me and the Pratima is working on the document. Then we share with our team and take the comments from them, and then we'll forward to you. This is the way we are processing, because it's a bit difficult and to manage the time also here. And even though the personal or team members are interested to join and to means to be in, but it is very difficult to manage the time because because of time constraint. And me myself also, I'm not able to attend all this previous webinar, and this is this is my second one. And first with that the team that we have stayed with you on the 8th November. So this is my second one, and I'm just recalling what happened in the past and how all the matters are materializing and all. So I'm just forwarding to you after collecting all the information from team members, because same member is not continuously present on the webinar. So it becomes very little bit it's difficult for us to correlate with one with another meetings, means communication and all the things. This is the situation of Nepal. Thank you.
Okay, great. So again, we're happy with the progress, and we are very much looking forward for the advanced round based on the comment. I think you are really in a very good state, and hopefully with the next round we might have one or two rounds before this is really now ready to go into the next step in terms of marriage review and others. But I think you're definitely track. The only thing I want to say that, and this is not only for Nepal, for any of the country teams, for the people that are not able that were not able to attend the webinar before, it's extremely important. Everything has been recorded. It's extremely important for you and the team to make sure that you look at those recordings while you are preparing. If you recall, on a few days ago when we've done the meeting, I referred to you to some of the webinars that we have done. I referred to you some material we already covered. Much of the comment that we are providing, we've already covered it in the webinars. So it's very important while people are working on the evidence policy to get reminded with the examples we gave you about how to frame the problem, how to write, in a very concise, catchy, attractive type of a narrative related to the problem and the causes, how to write the options. We've covered all this, how to do the searching. So please make sure that you, for the people that maybe were not able to look at all the webinars, it's very important while the team is working to go back and maybe remind yourself some of the examples we gave you on the webinars. So fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Usha,
Yes.
I just want to, actually, I wanted to just say exactly what Fadi just said. While we understand and we really hope that more people from the Nepal team could participate, which would be useful because then they can ask questions also. But having said that, the least that that you can ask them, request them, push them, whatever you have to do. Tell them to at least have a look at all the recordings, because we make that effort to try and get them to you as soon as possible. So let them at least try and spend some time on the recordings, which they can do at their convenience. And at least when they dialogue with you and Pratima and others, they'll at least have a meaningful discussion. Okay, so don't take the load totally on yourself. You must be able to persuade them that, at least see the recordings and then have the discussion. Over.
Yeah, certainly. Satyajit sir has addressed very nicely, and just the where we do get that means video recordings. I'm also trying to trace out on the mail or through which link we can go through that recordings of previous webinar.
Yeah. And it's very critical. I think this is for all the team. It's very important, as we mentioned before, in the design of those teams. Each team has to have a lead, and a core team. Core is the people that are contributing. The lead is bringing it all together in one pen. I think this is very important. I haven't seen any team that is able to publish and get it to the level of decision making if that is not structured. So the mix of the team, again, a lead for each of the team, not a rotating lead like every time somebody lead. No, a lead for that, or chairing it, and a core team. This is very important. This is not only for Nepal, for all the teams.
Yeah. One more thing, Usha, is just to respond to you. We will make sure that once again, we send you the links to all the recordings. Okay, so when we send the link for this recording, we will make sure that all the links to all the recordings are available and for all the materials. Okay, and you kind of put it in a nice place on your desktop so that it's available to you all the time. All right, we'll send it to you. And also I'll ask Prerna to make sure that all the Nepal team members receive all the links. Over.
Yeah, fantastic, great. Thank you so much, Usha and the Nepal team. Great work so far. Shall we go to Bangladesh? Who would like to speak on behalf of Bangladesh team? Dr. Rahman or Dr. Janet?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you. So this is Dr. Shahriar Rizvi from Bangladesh side. I think in regarding the members, we are better than the Nepal. We have more team members, but we took some different kind of strategy for group work. The problem is that if we want to make some group work during the webinar day, it is too long for us, and it is difficult to keep them these long hours, as most of them are working in policy level or administrative levels. Some are also from the academia also. So we set together after the webinar in separate day. Just like that, we sat twice after the last webinar, and we did some group works with different kind of group members, including policy making areas, some academia and administrative officers also. And we divided the group members according to our policy options, and we gone through the search, and then according to our evidence, we did we completed our group works. Though we are facing some difficulties regarding the evidence, local evidence, especially the Bangladesh, because there are not so much published work. But we have tried to include most of them through search, and also from our local reports or local data.
And so this is good, but just a point on the local evidence. No, I understand the challenge sometimes, but in the when we say publish, sometimes not all of the local evidence is published in academic article or so. So usually we look at a lot of report, statistic report, report, commissioned report, UN related reports, organization reports. So even if they are not published in academic journal, they are still used as local evidence. So do you mean that also you're not able to access this type of evidence in the case of Bangladesh?
Yeah, we have used some kind of survey that are conducted by the health services or drug administration. We have used some of them along with the systematic reviews. Okay. Because again, try to refer. The different way of looking at the existing health information system, the existing organization report, many types of sources that can go beyond published evidence, mostly on the local evidence, because sometimes, yes, we refer to this type of evidence when we don't find published single studies or so from the country. And if you recall in the webinar that we've covered, maybe the team could remind themselves about it when we looked at the search strategy, and also we gave you example of where we can look at the local data. So maybe you can really try to refer to that, to the type of report you can look at for the local data. Okay, thank you. Okay. Anyone else from Bangladesh? So certainly, thank you for sending the draft. We will be definitely reviewing it as well, and we'll give you feedback on this. But I know that you are really very much advanced in this process as well. Any other thing that you want to raise or challenge? Okay. Shall we go to the team from Malawi? Who would like to speak? Yes.
Morning.
Dr. Moyo?
Yeah.
Yes.
So far, we've managed to find possible policy options. I think from the meeting that we had with Russia and Anthony last week, they sort of gave us guidance on things that we can look out for. But I do concur with the Bangladesh team in terms of finding local evidence. So I think that's the thing that we've been mainly focusing on. For the past week, the team was away for a while, so we didn't manage to meet. I finish up the document by this week, and hopefully by next week we should be able to send the draft in.
Okay, so again, just to maybe reinforce that when it comes to local data, there's nothing called perfect local data in any context. So we don't want you to worry. I think you need to actually access what is really publicly known or publicly accessible from existing health information system, from statistic departments, from some of the report commission work. For example, in the case of Malawi, there's always different ways of actually getting this data. No one is expecting that you're going to have a perfect local data. That's fine. I think the key is really how to actually, whatever data you are able to actually put your hand on, how you are actually turning it into and substantiating and integrating it in the problem statement, the causes, as well as in the option. The one thing I realized from what I've seen, and this is not the case of Malawi, that sometimes where the team should put efforts a little bit more to consult with the international evidence. So we see the team are putting a lot of their thought, their understanding, their tacit knowledge, which is great, but make sure that this is supported by systematic review to the extent possible, particularly for the option part. So just make sure, again, you remind yourself of the search strategy session webinar that we have done with the different databases, the go-to databases like the health system evidence database, social system evidence database, depending on the focus. But these are one-stop shop type of databases that can allow you to access systematic reviews. This is an area I think it's very important. Now, I know in Nepal, 2 days ago, when they've done fantastic work, we gave them top tips of how they, aggregate many evidence from different systematic reviews to say, well, 5 out of whatever systematic reviews showed a conclusive evidence that 1, 2, 3 is effective or so. But I want to, again, this is a more reminder, not only for Malawi, but all the teams, to make sure that you put efforts on the international evidence, particularly systematic reviews. By the way, all the topics you are working on, there's many systematic reviews on it. So I think this is good. The topic is well researched, both at the level of single studies and systematic reviews, including the interventions.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
so yeah. So for the Malawi team, shall we? Do you like? Would it be reasonable that you send us an advanced draft within a week or so? Can you give us a little bit some timeline so we can plan our time accordingly?
Yeah, I think we can do that within a week. That should be possible.
Okay, because I think one it's very important that we have one touch point with each one of you through virtually or through email or even a call. But it's very important that we do that before the last webinar. Again, the last webinar, it's you that will be presenting, not us. So I want to make sure that the team are ready to present on whatever they have done, and we'll tell you later on what maybe specifically you're going to present. You're not going to present everything. I think you're going to, if you have really 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes meeting with the minister or any senior stakeholder, what are you going to tell them? How are you going to sell your problem? How are you going to convince them that they need to act? How to make a case for what you have done? This is really the basis of simulation for the last session. And that will be also built on many of the learning we're going to get from today's webinar, because today's webinar is a bit focusing on the so what, the dialogue, data visualization, and the engagement of media. Fantastic. Anything from Malawi team before we go to Uganda?
No, I think that's well noted. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So shall we go to Uganda? I know that we briefed. I know you guys have been really so busy with the rapid response you need to do in your own context. But can you tell us a little bit some status, where you are, how you will be going, what's your plan, the timeline or so? Uganda, anyone would like? Dr. Michael, would you like to speak a little bit on behalf of Uganda? Or Dr. Patty? Dr. Grace, anyone from Uganda would like to speak a little bit?
Hello, sorry
Yes.
for the silence. I thought
Yes, yes.
Simon was available
Sure.
to give the update.
Yes.
I think since the last meeting, we agreed to have to expedite the process, but in the course of that meeting, we were caught by 2 events. Our chair is leading the organization of the WOW Week. And I think it derailed us because we have to fast track the process of the concept.
Voice is not very clear,
connection.
Michael. Voice is not very clear.
Partners for support.
The
So last
connection.
week when we had agreed that we'll be meeting, that derailed us a little bit. Come again?
Yeah, because the connection was not great. Now we are
Are you
hearing
not?
you very
You're
well.
not hearing me?
Now we're hearing you. There was a
Okay.
disconnect. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just saying that we had read last week with the mobilization organization for the WOW Week. So we gave it priority because our team is actually the leading team on that committee to organize for the WOW Week. So we had started on the work. The other week we met on Friday and we refined a little bit the problem. So we had agreed to meet this week and last week to complete other parts, but the WOW Week derailed us a little bit, and other members were very still in the response to Ebola. So we gave priority to the WOW Week because it was a mandate on us and it was a demand on us. So we requested members to input on what we had agreed upon. So members are doing private input, and we're going to have to select a day next week to meet to connect the dots from each of the members. So that's where we had reached. We just refined a little bit the problem. We shared it even on Google Share. So if our mentor would be on the Google Share, would see what we refined. So that's where so far we had reached. And we are hoping to reconvene next week to again look at the next parts which each member was given to work on. Yeah, I think that's how far we had moved.
Sure, sure. Two things. Thank you, Mike. And we understand that the busy schedule you all have in response to Ebola. The two things. The first one, I wanna maybe I'm not quite clear yet. For the Uganda team, who's the lead for the team? Is it you?
No, the lead is Dr. Henry Kajumbura.
Okay.
Yeah, it is Dr. Henry who is the lead. And actually, while we were drilled, he was given a high responsibility on the Ebola response. So
is he with us today? No.
No.
Okay.
So
My worry,
because of
my worry, I'm not quite sure how many sessions he attended, to be honest with you. I do worry because I think the lead should be the one that are mostly involved and attending most of the sessions. Otherwise, it will be difficult to actually pull together the team. And that's my experience. It might happen, magically on your end in that way.
yeah,
That's fine.
a bit has been affected by Ebola responses.
Yeah. No, I totally
He's
understand.
our
I
team
totally understand.
leader, and he has missed a good number of them. Yeah. So I think we are the backup plan, but again, as I informed, we were derailed last week by the issue of the WOW preparation. So I think we had also planned to do the mop-up next week, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to meet.
Yeah, okay. No, I see definitely. Yeah.
Simon has been our secretariat. He gathered our views. I hope he's on the, he has been collecting our views. So I hope he's the one who convenes us. I hope he has prepared and is going to convene us next week for it.
Yeah.
That's in the update. I know I've been following it closely. Sorry, just that today I was multitasking. I'm not in Uganda, I'm in Arusha for a regional meeting. So I'm multitasking. That's why I delayed long to respond. But I have ample time to respond. I mean to attend because we are in a break now.
Yep. Thank you for
Mm.
joining and for your time. And the one thing I want to make sure, based on experience and mentoring many teams, I tell you, the lead is the person that make it or break it. Usually, with the work on other repo policy, with the work of all the core group. But the lead should actually be dedicating time and pulling it all together. My worry that if the lead is so super busy, I think maybe Uganda team need to reconsider about who would be actually leading this exercise, with the respect of everyone. But I think if you want to turn it into something really quite tangible, given the timeline that you already have, I think I'm hoping Uganda will not miss that opportunity of us supporting and making sure that you actually get a product that you can take and try to influence decisions. So maybe you would need to have that constant discussion within the team. If you are all super busy or whatever, I think it would be good to do some rethinking about who's going to be leading, who's going to dedicate some time, etc. It's not a lot of work. It just needs really some dedicated time and not a lot to pull it all together, particularly for the people who attended the webinars. The webinars are made to make it so easy for you to actually turn it around. And we can see this from happening from the other teams that, they benefited a lot from the webinars. I'm hoping for the case of Uganda, despite you are super busy, I know that it's unfortunate what happened in the case of Ebola. So we can see how much you are really trying to actually sacrifice to be with us on this. But maybe you would need to have that conversation if you think this will be a trend in terms of the lead and the team are super busy. Maybe you need to do some consideration to the team, or at least the lead, to make sure that you can actually pull it together. I'm hoping, again, if you meet next week, if you can give us at least where you are, because really we don't know where you are in terms of the writing. I'm hoping that you can give us something that we can react to on this, because we haven't seen yet, and we can definitely give you the feedback. We're happy to do one-to-one meeting with your team and the lead, and we can support you on that. Is this fair?
I think it is. I'm going to personally follow up with the Secretariat, Simon,
Okay.
Maybe we can have a physical meeting so that we agree on the way forward quickly with all the members.
Sure.
I'm going to follow up with him and see whether we can call it, because we had planned for a physical meeting,
Sure.
which we failed. So we're going to follow up next week and see whether we can do it.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you, Dr. Michael. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for all your work.
Okay.
Thank you. So what we're going to do now that we will thanks for all the feedback. Again, we are definitely, as Sataya mentioned, the teams are at different level of progress, but certainly, everybody is really moving. We are getting at the time that we want to make sure all the team are on the same stage as our phase at some point before we go into the last part, which is really the simulation. So let me go to our session today. Again, the way we're gonna do it, so we're gonna have you have many team members from K2P will be involved today, so I'm thankful for them. So I'll be talking about the dialogue. Rasha will facilitate the troubleshooting. We'll have Clara to do the data visualization, and we'll have Ryan that will be doing their own media. We're doing it within the time allocated, don't worry, but I want to make sure that you can get the best of all those elements, and all of them are really based on real world experience in terms of if involved in whether policy dialogue, whether data visualization. Now, even when we do dialogue, we do animated videos for the people who haven't read the evidence brief for policy. We give them video of 3-4 minutes. They can understand everything. Problem with pictures animated, with underlying causes, with options. The aha moment will come like this for them. So we are experimenting with different ways to make it easier for people to actually understand more the rigor of the evidence, but understand it in a very simple, practical way, so they can actually be prompted for action. So let's start by today. By this, yes.
Fadi, put it on full screen, please.
I will.
I don't think it's on full screen.
Now you have it.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Thanks.
So this is really the plan, and then we'll have some time certainly for you to work in groups in a breakout room before we actually finalize the session today. So again, this is I want to remind you, for the people in your team that was not able to look at all the previous webinars, very important. No one would answer. It is story. This is what we have showed you. It's a journey, but it's a story. No one can understand webinar 5 if you don't really have attended webinar 2 or webinar 3 or webinar 4. It's very, so are all as part of the story of what we took you one step at a time in terms of the process, and this is where the culminating part now, which is the so what. Okay, so what? You've identified problem, you've looked at the evidence, you framed the problem, you gave us options, and you look at implementation consideration, how this can be now taken to influence decision. This is what we're going to cover today before your last webinar, which will be. So again, the objective is to help you understand, as I told you, the two most commonly, widely, I would say, used tools in the field of knowledge translation are two: the evidence brief policy, which we already covered, and something called policy dialogue, which we're going to be taught. Policy dialogue is not a focus group. It's not a group of people coming together and just chatting about something. It's a very structured, it's used to create a friction among ideas, not friction among people. It's not a debate, it's a dialogue. So we design it in a way to make sure that it is really bringing everybody up to speed on what is the problem, what are the causes, and what are the options. Everybody will up their game after they actually get to understand what this all about, and certainly with that's why we use. You will see later on with Clara, with Ryan, how we use data visualization to our advantage, how we engage with media. Sometimes we go through proxy and we engage with media to influence decision, and certainly this is where the importance is that we want you to start thinking, okay, I finished my FWP policy, how to do an outreach strategy, meaning who are the stakeholders I want to engage, who should I invite to the policy dialogue, who will be doing it, etc., etc. So this is the basis for the session today. Okay. Now, again, this is where I want to mention that, in worldwide, you will see many, it's becoming a norm, actually, to be honest with you. In many countries, now policy dialogue is one important tool in order to influence decisions. So basically, you could have a very nice document, evidence-based document, but you need to make sure that how this can be locally contextualized to support decisions. And sometimes that local contextualization happen also at the policy dialogue table, which we're going to be talking about it today. As you know, if you recall in webinar 2, we discussed with you political and policy context mapping, right? And we told you this is a very important session because we know that decisions are impacted by so many different factors, not only evidence, by political factors, social, economic. I gave you a lot of examples about COVID-19, why countries, despite that evidence was clear, why countries have used different strategies to deal with COVID-19, because there are other factors that come to play. Now, in the policy dialogue, we want to make sure that regardless of the context, that evidence is used as one input into the decision-making process. So take into consideration all contextual factors. Still, you want to make sure evidence is shaping that type of discussion. That's why, we want to hear from stakeholders how they can add value of this and how we can prompt them to take action. That's why we don't invite anyone to the dialogue. We invite the real decision makers, not decision takers. The real decision maker, the people that are really have an important stake that they can influence or can be influenced by those type of decisions. So people that can make decisions. And we'll tell you later about how we can do that. But this is a very important thing that we know. This is where you engage, with stakeholders, and you can tell them this is not written in stone. This is not perfect. But this is the best we can get to. This is where a one-stop shop document that can give you everything we know about the problem, causes, and options, and implementation issues. And we want you to start deciding and thinking, how are you going to deal with this problem based on this type of evidence? So they like it because this is part of the engaging process. So dialogue is used as increasingly being used to influence the use of evidence. It enables interaction among different stakeholders. Amazing, we've done a lot of dialogue, many dialogues where we brought. Sometimes we had one time we had a dialogue where we had 9 ministries around the tables. So all this type of discussion about multi-sector type of engagement, the different interests. We had non-state actors, we had private sector, we have professional associations, we have organizations. Everybody will start to realize everybody is looking at the same document. Everybody is looking at the same evidence. Everybody is interpreting it differently, but at least there's one source for them that they can look at, and that's the power. This is very powerful to influence their mindset, their thinking, shaping how they look at the problem and how they think about the policy option. It doesn't mean that they have to actually agree with everything that you put here, but at least, again, it's be used as a jumping off point for deliberation. Maybe sometimes they craft an option that you didn't put, but based on the plus and minuses from all the options that you put, sometimes they end up with something, we think this is the best way we can do in our context in the next 6 months. That's fine, but at least allow them for, again, making sure, looking at the intersection points, looking at what they can do, what the feasibility, and it is consultative. So basically, it's not a presentation. Dialogue is an engaging, consultative, inclusive, and transparent. Everything on the table. By the way, one of the conditions to come to the dialogue that you cannot put on the dialogue except on the dialogue table, except the Elven Report policy. No one can bring any document else. This is the document that you need to refer to. Because you want to shape that. It's a very structured process where we dedicate some time to problem framing and making sure everybody is agreeing to the problem, and if we want to do tweaking, and we dedicate certain time to options, and we dedicate certain time to next step, meaning, okay, what we're going to do after. We cannot just say, wow, that's great, thank you so much, and I'm leaving now, I'm going back to you to do exactly what I used to do before. No, how we can really create that and create champions for people that can champion change and go and start doing some changes in the process. So that's what policy dialogue is all about. We have a lot of examples, us at the K2P Center, IVIPNet, there's a lot of examples from IVIPNet about policy dialogue. McMaster Health Forum, they've done a lot of dialogue. Everything in the public domain. We've done many of them on different level of 2 weeks ago, we had about the social protection. So with a lot of a few months ago in Jordan, we've done something about universal healthcare coverage with all parliamentarians, all decision makers and ministers. So yeah, again, there are a lot of examples, but again, the key is how to bring the key decision makers related to that topic around one table. And it's not a focus group. Again, it's not a discussion about what you think and what you believe. This is aside. How you can, if you see in the table, everybody had in front of them the Adam report policy. That's the only condition. Now, in this case, for example, you see in this picture where we've done that in partnership with the Ministry of Health, or the one that is sitting beside me, the Deputy Minister of Health at that time. But we brought all the stakeholders around the table on that particular topic, that people that can actually take action and make decisions. So it's a very structured process. We design it. It's in a closed room. Media is not allowed to come in because it might be people can talk to media after the session, but not during the session. Very structured. The way we do it in Lebanon is from 9 to 1 p.m., 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. followed by lunch. But it's very structured. No phone, nothing. 9 to 10:30, focusing on problem definition, finalize that part, take short break, go to the options, and then we have the last 1 hour for the so what. How to create the roadmap for action moving forward. What we're gonna do after and start to influence decision. This is how it's being designed. Now, of course, it allows a lot of interaction. That's why the important role of facilitator. We never allow 1 or 2 people to take the lead because sometimes, from my experience, to be honest with you, the people who are that can contribute most to a dialogue are the people that speak less. Meaning the people that don't speak, sometimes it doesn't mean that they don't have much to offer. Sometimes they are not giving the opportunity, or they were actually more sidelined by 1 or 2 people that are too vocal. So the way we design it is, in fact, everyone will be speaking, and no one can take the lead. No one can actually, not accept the other's point of view. That's why the way we do the seating, believe it or not, the seating of the policy dialogue table, we do it in a very careful way, because we realize sometimes that people speak depending where they sit, any dialogue table, and who's around them, and who's facing them, and who's beside them. So we designed this in a way that actually get the best out of people and allow them to actually excel and contribute. That's why when we tell them, when you come to the policy dialogue table, please take the hat of your organization and put the hat of a responsible citizen that will make an impact in their society. And this makes a big difference, to be honest with you. Of course, everybody will representing organization, but sometimes when we represent organization, we are too much like that, want to make sure, defend our position, making sure our organization is not losing. So we say, look, everything on the table here, this is not about who's winning and who's losing. This is about making an impact on human lives. This is about making an impact on societal change, health system change, public health, etc., etc. And I have to say, the rule of the game changed when you say that. At the same time, we use what's called the Chatham House rule. So we never associate. We always tell them, okay, we never associate any statement to any name. So you can say whatever you want, but we will never say that you said that. And I think this is very important as well, because later on we produce something called dialogue summary, which is actually a summary of all the deliberation, no names on it. No one is saying, but a summary of deliberation about what has been discussed and agreed on the problem and the options on the next step. And we create a roadmap. A roadmap was who's taking the lead on each of the intervention that we agreed on. So again, it's a very structured process, and we don't have time to go into a lot of detail. Usually we do it in a very, very elaborated even session when we talk about the policy dialogue in the workshop. But at least I want to give you the essential part that you need to know, in fact, in this part of this. So that's why, I think one of the things that you want to make sure that certain questions can be considered when you're preparing for policy dialogue. To be honest with you, more than 50% of work happens before you prepare to the dialogue, not during the dialogue. If you prepare for the dialogue very well, I think you're gonna make a big impact. To be honest with you, much of the impact, the documented impact that we were able to make In K2P, it was because also of policy dialogue, not only of evidence report policy. So always, this is something that you need to ask, okay, should I do dialogue now on the antimicrobial resistance, on AMR, on the thing that we are doing? Absolutely. You ask yourself, would it address a high priority issue? Absolutely. Does it provide opportunity to discuss problem and options? Certainly. Is the dialogue will be informed by a pre-circulated evidence report policy? Absolutely. And this is exactly what you are preparing now, which you're going to present later. Does it ensure fair representation among those people who are really involved or affected with? Absolutely. That's why you need to make sure we never bring homogeneous group around the table, by the way. They have to be heterogeneous. They have to come from different, of course, depending on their involvement. But we make sure that we have fair representation around the table. Does the dialogue engage with the facilitator and set ground rules? Absolutely. The facilitator should have the experience to do that. And certainly there will be an output. Basically, we call it dialogue summary. So it's a document that summarizes all the deliberation and what they agreed on in the next step. Why? Because that roadmap is the one that you will actually engage with next time to make sure that things are keeping on track in terms of the implementation. Trust me, I'm sure you have a lot of experience where you go to meetings, oh, everything is great, and we all agree, etc., and then okay, after a few months, nothing happened. So how do you make sure that this momentum is happening and leading to action? This is very important as part of the design of those meetings. So that's why when we four things we do to prepare for a dialogue, we need to have your document, which is called evidence report policy. We need to have select the stakeholders, and I will show you now. We work on the seating where because usually in the dialogue, to have an effective, successful dialogue, we're talking about 18 to 24, 25 people maximum. Why? Because if you have more number than that, it will be difficult, honestly, to engage with everyone. And there will be a lot of noise in the room more than music. So it's very important to have, again, a fair number of people that you can run the dialogue in a facilitated way. And of course, you need to have a facilitator that has been experienced, that actually have done that before, or at least has been trained to do so. That's why, and by the way, IFIPNet have published a lot of work, and they have now even material or manual on facilitation of policy dialogue. I think you need to make sure you're fair to that. So again, the policy dialogue are informed. We never ask people to come around the table if we don't give them a document at least 2 weeks before the session. Make sure that this document will be sent, your evidence report policy will be sent to the participants at least 2 weeks before. In fact, the way we write the letter, when we send them the evidence report policy, we tell them, look, we know you're busy people. You might not have time to read it all. So sometimes we say, okay, if you have 15 minutes, please look at the summary. If you have half an hour, look at the documents, etc. If you don't have more than 5 minutes, look at this first page, because sometimes we summarize everything in one page, which it has to be written in a very punchy way, problem that capture attention, option, and implementation consideration, 1 page. So in a way, we write it to them, meaning we don't let them give us any excuse for not reading something before the meeting. So that's the way we do it. And more than that, even when they come around the table, before we start, I always ask them, shall I assume everybody is really read the evidence report policy? Some of them, they put the notes, etc. They took some others, you can see from their body language or facial expression that they haven't done it. And then I give them, okay, can you take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, skim it, make sure you do it. And during the dialogue, we put on the slides, we do animated videos, we do the visualization of some of the evidence coming out, and sometimes we put some slides to remind them, because the key is to keep them on track. Many times, sometimes you will have the first hand saying, oh, I believe this was not whatever, etc. Automatically, I refer them to this document, because you want everybody to refer to that. Policymakers have the tendency to use a lot of their past experience and tacit knowledge, and sometimes they don't read, to be honest with you. I'm not generalizing. So that's why we keep them grounded that, oh, by the way, okay, fine, I can see what you're saying, but however, let me remind you that on page whatever, you will see the lot of evidence that we got from the case of Bangladesh or Malawi, whatever, that speak, in fact, truly about the side of the problem. Here, you change the game, that you cannot speak anything except speaking evidence. So this is how we actually do that. So it's a very, very, again, structured process of how to do this. Yes, we do a lot of preparation. I told you more than 50% of the work happens before the actual dialogue. So that's why we select between 18 to 25 people. We make sure that they have the knowledge about it. And even when we write the invitation letter, we always say that this is not substitutional, meaning you cannot send somebody on your behalf, either you or not. Meaning, because we selected you because we know that you are very much involved, you have the right knowledge, you are a champion, you are a leader, and you are a decision maker. If you're not able to come, you cannot say, okay, I want to send somebody from my team, because those people will not be able to make decisions. In some cases where we felt that there are important people that were not able to make it because of travel and work, we had to postpone the dialogue up until we have the right people around it. So what I'm trying to tell you, don't first of all, you cannot afford not to engage the right people in the dialogue, because it will bounce back negatively on you. Second, make sure they are around the table. If their schedule don't permit, make sure that you get to a safe playing field in terms of a date and time that will work for everyone. So they are the ability to engage, to champion, to contribute, and also to have a balanced representation and understanding the context as well. That's why, for example, we look at the decision maker level, who are from the ministries, manager, directors, government organizations, syndicate order, parliamentarian, etc., municipalities. Of course, depending on the topic. I'm not saying you have to invite them all, but these are the categories. We also, in our case, there's a lot of influencers because the government is weak. There's a lot of civil society NGOs that are, influencer, advocacy group, leaders, private sector, research, and also sometimes we engage citizens, believe it or not. Either we do a citizen dialogue before the actual dialogue, so we bring the feedback from people before we bring it. And for example, in Jordan, for University of coverage, we have done citizen dialogue with lay people. And that outcome of that dialogue, the input of it, we took it into the policy dialogue table with all parliamentarians and government. And we wanted to tell them, look, before we start showing muscle here about who's doing what, let us tell you what people are saying about this. And I tell you, this is very powerful sometimes of how the dynamic change in terms of decisions. When we've done something about addressing disability and rehab services in the context of a country, we actually brought to the table, to the policy dialogue table, a mom that she has two sons that were really physically challenged and disabled. And she told them her experience in 15 minutes, what she passed through for the last 10 years of trying to access services to her two sons. And I tell you, this was a game changer, because they were coming, everybody saying that we're doing this and we're doing that and we have strategy and whatever. And then suddenly they heard somebody that actually using the system, and all what they are saying does not make sense. So sometimes we do that strategically. I'm not saying that you need to bring a citizen, a lay person to every dialogue. Maybe you don't need to, but sometimes we do strategically depending on the topic that you are working on. So that's why we have a framework for how to select people from the government, manager institution, a community-based institution, in professional provider, syndicate group, academia. Sometimes definitely we bring people who have done research on the topic, either one or two, but not more than that. By the way, the number of each of those representation, not many. We cannot have 50% of participants only from government. No, we want to make sure that we have a mix, whether NGOs, etc. So this is really the type of for example, when we've done something about preterm deliveries, because after the refugee crisis, there was a lot of problem with the senior refugees at that time, and there were the preterm deliveries that affecting women's health. We hosted people from, Ministry of Health, UNHCR, because they were working on refugees, the network involved in neonatal care, the Arab obstetric gynecology, the orders of nurses, etc., directors of hospital, primary care center, NGO, because they were the most involved in the healthcare delivery. So the selection was mostly because this is related to their work. When we've done something about, the prescribing pattern and quality of pharmaceutical drugs, of course, we had to invite the ministry, syndicate of hospitals, order physician nurses, pharmaceutical plants, academia, medical school, because it's related to education, international organization, national agencies, insurance companies, of course, the legal agenda, the one that are involved in the setting up the laws or so. So again, each topic has its unique stakeholders. So that's why for AMR, you need to think about, okay, who's from the government, who from professional associations, whom from healthcare facilities, who are the ones that can, or among others, of course, that need to come to the table. Yes, we pay attention. Don't underestimate the seating. I'm not saying that we have a hard science behind that, but I tell you from experience that sometimes, again, people sometimes intervene based on how, where, and whatever they are sitting in front of whatever. For example, we never allow two organizations that are really always, in conflict to sit facing each other, because they will end up with finger pointing. So we never allow this. So sometimes we act to space them. We make sure that they don't see each other all the time, so they don't feel particularly their attention. And sometimes we do power mapping to see the positioning of each of those organizations before they come around the table. So because again, you don't want to end up with a debate. And we never allow two people from the same institution to sit beside each other, because they will start doing like this and taking side and whatever those during the. So we make it in a way to allow people to be by themselves, but also contributing to the cause. And I think this is definitely important in terms of the process. So that's why the dialogue facilitation again is very important in terms of this. So that's why you need to make sure that the person facilitating has at least experience in facilitating. But it's very important that person. We're not expecting he or she to be an expert in the topic, but they need to understand very well the content of the Adult People policy. They need to read it very well. They need to understand how it's being developed. Because again, sometimes when you want to change discussion, you need person that understand everything what's in here, so they can refer people to, they can use it, whatever. Sometimes we had a lot of debate among people, and automatically I try to shift the focus and bring them here. Oh, by the way, if you look at this option, much of what you're saying very much related to what you're saying. So can you open the page on whatever? You see what I mean? So there's a lot of strategies and tactics you can use in order to keep people grounded in evidence. So that's why it's very important, but it's important for the facilitator to be neutral. You cannot take side. The minute the facilitator takes side, you lose the battle. Because automatically you say, oh, by the way, I'm with you or whatever against. No, you have to be objective. They have to be neutral. You need to allow for the space of deliberation. You need to accept and be tolerant of all what is being said. And so you can really try to pull it together. So that's why, and by the way, I never, when we facilitate, we never say, oh, today we are aiming for a consensus. No, because the minute you say that, well, sometimes consensus is when the decision of the majority, when actually no one is agreeing to, unfortunately. So we never say we are, but many times we end up in a consensus, but we never force it. And so it's very important that you don't need to everybody say yes, well, great, okay, we agree with the option, and no one will take it forward. So that's why and of course you need to be, the facilitator need to be transparent. So we always disclose conflict of interest. If we get funding from agency, we always, for example, in our case, we never accept, funding from pharma or whatever. We're very clear on the transparent about how this was funded. We're very objective and also respectful of the people around the table. So this is very. These are the ground rules. What I'm trying to tell you in terms of this. Okay. So the key facilitation tips is very important that, again, as I told you, facilitator can make it or break it sometimes. So that's why they have to understand the context, the level of power, the politics. Sometimes we do, in dialogue internationally, but we make sure that we understand the context very well. We understand, who's around the table, the process, so you can understand this type of dynamics. We definitely, respect the deliberative dialogue process. Again, be well prepared. 80% of the effort for the dialogue is made prior to the dialogue. So that's why we put a lot of effort on building it and making sure that, the facilitator have some skills in conflict resolution, because sometimes you might have different point of views and there's a lot of politics behind that. So, you need to make sure that you need make everybody happy and not to get to the level of a major conflict. But the most important thing in the last 1 hour of that dialogue, where you actually, you want actually to get everybody on board with the next steps. You want to make sure that there's a tangible next steps, not yes, great, and we'll look into it and we'll do whatever, etc. So that's why we try to be concrete about what's gonna come after the result of this. So again, transparency is the key. This is steps for you. Make sure you introduce yourself as a facilitator very clearly, from where you're coming. Talk about conflict of interest, disclose it, provide whatever. In our case, we say who we are and what we do. Explain the purpose. It's very important to actually remind people why they were chosen, why they were selected for this dialogue. Remind the people about the purpose of that dialogue, that this is not a debate. Remind them about the outcome that you want to achieve in 3-4 hours. You give them the rules, and you also make sure that you allow them and you emphasize that you want to listen to each one of them. And we do that. And we have different tricks of how even shy people, we allow them to speak at some point in a way that actually allow them to contribute to the process. Any questions before we go to Russia with the simulation? The simulation exercise is a real exercise that we pass a lot. We have a lot of case studies, to be honest with you, about what could go wrong in policy dialogue and what happens if something goes wrong. How you can pull it together. How you deal with difficult person on the table. I'm sure you've dealt a lot with difficult people that always critical, always doesn't like what's happening, always blame others. I'm sure you have that. So how do you deal with that if you are facilitating a dialogue? So Russia will actually give us a little bit more detail on that, and we'll get you to actually reflect on this before we go into the presentation data visualization. If people are not reading, how to make something attractive to them, and then we're going to go to the role of media. But let me pause a little bit here before, if you have any question on the dialogue before we go to the simulation. Any question? Are we fine so far? Okay, if no question, Rasha, over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Russia.
So just let me share my screen.
Sure, yeah, let me stop sharing.
Can you see the screen?
Still coming. Yes, your screen now. Yes.
Okay, so for the simulation exercise, you will actually be assuming the role of a facilitator, and we will present to you some scenarios, but these are actual scenarios that we faced during a dialogue, and we would like to see how you would react as a facilitator. Okay, so we shared with you a document that provides the different scenarios, so you can refer to that document, and I will also share the questions so that you can see it in front of me, in front of you. Okay, so do you all have the document? Can someone confirm in the chat box that you have received the document?
I will send you the document yesterday. I'm not quite sure if this was shared with you. Is it? Anyone can give us? Sataya, do you know if this was shared with the team through you?
It came to me, all right. So I'm just trying to check,
Okay.
see if it went out to everyone.
It's a Word document. It's a Word. If not, we can. Don't know, Russia. If maybe They can
Yes,
they
you
can read
can-
it from the slide.
Yeah, we can walk you through it. So,
Yep.
so this is the case scenario. I want you to read it, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna read it as well. And it has been
Kim already
posted,
sent it. Yep, send
yeah,
it
it's
now.
posted on the chat box, so please refer to it as well. So in April 2016, a center convened a national dialogue titled Informing Salt Iodization Policies in a given country to ensure optimal iodine nutrition. So this is the focus of the dialogue. And that dialogue hosted 18 individuals from diverse backgrounds, including representatives from relevant ministries, public institution representative, UN agency representative, international and local NGOs, salt production industries, salt packaging companies, medical society representatives, as well as researchers and public health scholars. So you had stakeholders from all different categories around the table to discuss the issue of how to optimize iodine nutrition, salt iodization in the country. The dialogue was followed by standard procedures and was informed by a pre-circulated evidence brief for policy to allow for focused discussion among policymakers and stakeholders. Of course, the dialogue was facilitated by a knowledgeable facilitator in the presence of the Deputy Minister of Health. So now I would like you to be that facilitator. Assume the role of the facilitator, okay? I'm gonna switch. So as a facilitator, you open the dialogue with a brief introduction to the center and its role in promoting evidence-informed decision-making. So typically, we always start the dialogue by introducing ourselves and mentioning any conflict of interest that we might have. This is followed by an overview of the purpose of the dialogue, the expected outcomes, and the guiding principles. As the facilitator, you proceeded with briefly reflecting on the outputs of previous dialogue, and then out of nowhere, a participant abruptly interrupts you, and that participant represents the consumer organization, and he demands an explanation on why he was not being invited to any of those previous dialogues that you were mentioning. What would you do as a facilitator at this stage? So I'm going to pause to hear your response. So just I want to clarify that this is an engaging session. So I'm expecting that you will be engaging with me and you will be providing input either through the chat or by speaking directly. So the first scenario is if you were introducing the session and then someone interrupts you and tells you, why weren't I involved in previous session? I want an explanation now. What would you do in this case as a facilitator?
So again, somebody that is really very vocal and trying to a little bit change your plan. And he's saying that because he's coming from one organization that he's supposed to be in all the dialogue. So as if he is telling you that you're not transparent, you're not inclusive, etc., etc. So how do you deal with this case if you are facilitating a dialogue?
We need a response so that we can move to the next scenario.
Feel free to put in the chat box. Yes, go ahead.
Can I speak? Me, myself.
Of course, go ahead.
So in that case, first of all, we can accept maybe due to some means reason how they have been missed. It is not intentional. So to miss the important means partners, stakeholders in this dialogue, maybe some due reason it hasn't missed, and in future it will not be missed in the dialogue by taking the apology, and we can move forward.
Yeah, this is excellent. Yeah, this is one way you can do it. Any other suggestions? So of course, one important thing to keep in mind is that whenever we invite participants, so thank you, Najuka, for the point. So you don't have to apologize. You know why? Because when we invite participants, it's not an arbitrary choice. There is specific criteria that we use for selecting participants to any dialogue. And that selection process requires careful planning and time to ensure that we have the right mix of people in the round table. And this is where you make the case and you assure participants that all of you have been invited to today's dialogue because you have met those criteria and because we believe that you will bring unique views and experiences to bear on the challenge and learn from the research evidence and from others' views and experiences. So you have to be very clear. There's a selection process that takes place. And sometimes if a participant doesn't come, we don't expect We don't accept if that participant sent anyone else on their behalf, because people are selected based on careful deliberation. So in this way, you can protect yourself, because everyone will know that they have been selected because they can contribute to that session. And if they have not been selected previously, it means that they do not typically have a role in that particular dialogue. And this way you can protect yourself, okay?
Rasha, you're muted, I think.
Okay, I apologize. Okay, so unsatisfied by the response, the participant then requested a few minutes to read a list of declarations he has prepared, claiming they were relevant to the dialogue topic. The next few minutes were nothing short of a list of unjustified attacks targeting the Ministry of Health and some other stakeholder organizations. How should the facilitator handle this issue? So that person, he had a list and he started accusing the minister. So he has a personal agenda. He wants to blame the minister. He wants to blame everyone else. He's not happy with the situation in the country. So he is taking the discussion somewhere else. As a facilitator, how would you handle this issue?
So clearly this participant had there's a lot of issues between his organization and the Ministry of Health. And he thought that this would be a great opportunity actually to attack the Ministry of Health in front of everyone. How do you deal with this case? Feel free to put on the, if you want to.
Would you ask the participant to leave? What do you think? Shall we ask him to leave because he is interrupting our session?
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. In this scenario, that we can say to the participants that, okay, so whatever the declaration and the list of the declaration that he has prepared, that will take into the considerations. So in that way, in the very positive way, that we can say that, okay, whatever that's a declaration that you have prepared, that will which will be relevant to the dialogue topics, will try to include in the policy like this. In that way, we can persuade him.
Well, the only challenge with this, because this was a real case, that much of the declaration that he was bringing forward has nothing to do with the evergreen policy nor the dialogue. That's the problem. So, so that's why it's very challenging to commit for that, because this is actually was a political statement that has nothing to do with evidence.
Yeah, so in this case, you shouldn't go with him because he is dragging the conversation and shifting it somewhere else, away from the purpose that you all came to discuss. So first and foremost, it's very important for you to calm the person down and speak nicely to them and let them know that you are not trying to be aggressive or hostile, but you are all here to work together. And more importantly, do not engage in discussion that is getting out of control, and do not get aggressive, because if you start getting aggressive, this is what the person wants and he would win the argument. So try to remain as objective as you can. Try to avoid being aggressive. Speak calmly to the person, but at the same time, interrupt them as needed, but not to offend them by cutting them off. And more importantly, refer to the rule of the dialogue. Remind them of the purpose and objective of that dialogue and why everyone is here.
Sometimes it happens that sometimes some participant wants to take the dialogue in a different direction, or to make you drift from your original plan. And this is very, very risky, because not only you lose trust, but also you make the whole dialogue fail and the whole efforts will be gone. So it's very important to actually know how to deal with that. And as Rasha mentioned, you'll face a lot of situations with difficult people that sometimes is intimidating, but you have to really keep calm. You have to be inclusive and as well as objective, but with clear rules of how the engagement will happen. Sure.
Yeah. And just to point that we cannot ask the participant to leave, because remember, this participant is a representative of the consumer. Once we do that, he would run to the media and other outlet and tell them, and he would question our credibility. He would start saying that he has been sacked, meaning that we are talking secretly, we are planning secretly away from the people. So this is very critical situation, and you have to keep in mind the sensitivity, because he is representing consumers. And he wants us to sack him so that he can do that action. So very important that you don't fail into that trap.
Yeah, the minute you start asking people to leave or who to stay, I think you lose the battle, and I think you send the wrong message in terms of inclusiveness, in terms of equity, in terms of all this type of thing. So it's very important to make sure. We had many cases where, in fact, many people around there, some people didn't want to whatever, they have some issues or they don't want to contribute, whatever, but they end up actually providing a lot of contribution. It's a way of the engagement. That's why the first half an hour of the dialogue will set up the scene. Either this will succeed or not. So it's the first half an hour is very critical in the lifetime of any dialogue, because this is where all those issues will come up, and you will actually make sure that everybody is happy with the rules and respectful of all the process and the preparatory work.
Okay, so continuing. So to set the agenda back on track, the facilitator then asked participants to briefly introduce themselves and their affiliations to get a sense of the diversity of stakeholders that are present at the roundtable discussion. So when the turn came to that participant, again, he started demanding an explanation as to why the center has not invited a number of individuals from his team. And he started listing these people in front of everyone, as well as demanding an explanation for not sending him the full name of participants who are attending the dialogue prior to the meeting. He also complained why the media was not invited to the dialogue meeting. How would you respond as a facilitator? What would you tell that person?
And clearly, this is a problem maker. You can see, again, it's a real story. He was still trying to see how this will actually. So how do you deal with this? Yeah, it keeps coming back. It keeps coming back, and still we haven't started the dialogue.
What do you think? Should we have invited media in this case?
Just to make it easier, so certainly media is, we don't invite media around the table, just because, again, media will be only taken bits and pieces of who said this or whatever, and it will actually take the whole thing in a wrong direction. So this is not a meeting that will invite media. Of course, people can speak to media after that. We had cases where people speak to media after we finish the session, which is totally fine. They can say whatever they want. So that's and mind you, the minute stakeholders know that the media are on the table, they will be very, very careful what to say and what not to say. So, so just make sure. The other thing that, this guy, I still remember, because he called before our office and he wanted to have the full name of people that is coming to the dialogue. We never disclose it, not because it's confidential, just because people might change some plans at some point. And people will know each other all around the table, but we never disclose the name of participants before the meeting, which actually in the meeting audit. But again, how do you, what do you do? Do you remind them again, the Holly saying, can I speak, or the question are only for country participants? No, please, Holly, go ahead. Anyone can answer.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say this other follow-up question almost can take the same answer that you gave recently, to say if the media is not there, it means they didn't meet the criteria that you laid down, which is directly mapped to those who are relevant to discuss this particular issue. If you were going through the criteria and the media meets it, they will be around the table. And then, since it's a continuous process, you can also add that there will be a stage where they will be invited. So it's a stepwise process. At this stage,
Yep.
they don't meet the
Yep.
criteria. If they do,
Exactly.
they will be around the table.
Exactly. That's why you remind them about the process, how this actually been identified.
Yeah,
Yes.
and just as a reminder, during those dialogue, we tend to not invite media because, as we mentioned in the opening session, that we use the Chatham rule where you cannot attribute names to people's statement. And we know when media are there, they will start saying, the minister said so, the health professional said so, and they will break the Chatham rule, which would discourage participants from genuinely opening up and actively participating in the deliberations taking place. And more importantly, you can reassure participants that all deliberations will be summarized later on in a dialogue summary that will then be sent to all participants, including the media, for distribution. But during the session, we cannot invite media. And another important thing to keep in mind, which we always use as well, is to use other participants and your own power of observation to get back to the agenda. Meaning you can ask one or two other people around the room what they think the policy dialogue has gotten to, and this can immediately put into contrast to what the unconstructive voice is saying, meaning the participant will feel cornered because now other people around the room are also turning against them. So that always look at the body language of other people and try to gauge other people so that they can back you up as well.
Now, one thing certainly when you keep as a facilitator, you want to make sure one strategy you do that when you have a difficult person, well after you discuss all the rules and you remind them about this, etc., when you feel that you don't want to end up in a situation that it's a debate between you and one other person. Try to avoid it as much as possible as a facilitator. The other person wanted to do that because at the end, other people will not feel happy, some might leave, whatever. The minute you start seeing this happening, this is where you actually, you bring the ball to somebody's other, to the other yards, or to somebody's other territory, meaning you can look in our case, for example, when this happened, because he kept interfering, and at some point this was actually affecting the dialogue and the time that we respect for all other people that are really high profile around the table. At that time, this is where we look at at all the other people and say, well, I think you're all are clear on the selection, on the criteria, or whatever. That's why you were all here. And they were starting nodding their heads, meaning you're sending him a message that all of us now is against you. so here where he's trying to see that this is not powerful anymore. So there's a way sometime where you actually bring the power of the group to engage in the right way, where you say, okay, but all of the people that are on the table now are, we're clear on this, they are whatever, they know this is the process, they know whatever, and that's why they are here, correct? And people start nodding. That nodding is a very powerful message to that person that, look, if you're going to continue that way, you're going nowhere, because everybody now is on the same page. So this is where there's a different ways of the facilitator trying to actually make sure that the group dynamics work at some point. Now, I have to say that in this case, I was expecting him to leave. I will never ask him to leave, but I was expecting at some point, because it kept a little bit more tense. I have to say it ended up that he stayed till the end of the dialogue, and actually he contributed much at the second part of the dialogue, where he felt that, well, this is, I couldn't change it, I cannot drift it, I couldn't ruin it, but I cannot afford to leave as well, because this is an important topic. Again, there's a process you did it, but certainly as a facilitator, you would need to, you'll face some issues about not everything goes as planned. So keep in mind that you have this type of flexibility, problem-solving approach, troubleshooting, all this type of thing. In the EVIPNet manual, there is a lot of other cases, examples of troubleshooting that you can face. Rasha?
Yeah, so exactly in the subsequent, now you will see in the follow-ups session, this is where we use the power of participants to dilute the power of that person. So we got other people on our side to dilute it, and we will see it now in the second scenario after this. So moving on, as the facilitator proceeded to discuss the actual topic, he asked participants whether they have read the policy brief ahead of time. A significant number did not read it. So what should you do in this case? Because we know that the dialogue should be driven by the evidence from the evidence brief for policy. And if many of your participants have not read it, what would you do in this case? How can you ensure that all participants have an idea or a sense of what the evidence says? So first of all, you have to make sure that you pre-circulate the policy brief or the evidence brief for policy at least 2 weeks prior to your policy dialogue. And we normally send it as one key message, 1 page, followed by 3-page summary, and then followed by the full policy brief. In this way, we tell participants, if you have 5 minutes, read the summary. If you have 10 minutes, if you have 10-15 minutes, read the full brief, so that we ensure that at least participants come with some information ahead of time. And during the dialogue, for example, if many of the participants haven't read it, we would give them 15 minutes to read the policy brief outline, and we will make sure we have copies of the brief for participants to refer to during the dialogue. Okay, so following the 15 minutes, participants now are more engaged. And then as the session proceeded, the participants still interfered and interrupted. At this stage, other facilitators started to sense the facilitator started to sense other participants' frustration as they indirectly attempted to confront him and the way he was dominating the discussion. So this is what I was referring to earlier, that other people started to get engaged. They started to express their frustration. They started to turn on that person. And accordingly, that person started to feel threatened. He started to feel that his power is diluted because other participants were giving him negative body language. And at this stage, we ended up telling the participant, okay, we will give you 2 minutes to express yourself. But we then emphasized to him that at that same 2 minutes will be given to all other participants who wish to contribute to the topic. So we gave him 2 minutes, he spoke and spoke and spoke. When his time was up, we switched to other participants. We then made sure that to outline the rules for participants, that it's very important to listen to each other, to have equal rights to speak. And we kept repeating the rule during the dialogue. And then we started empowering other people against that person, and eventually that person stopped interrupting and he started then contributing in a positive way to the dialogue, because he saw that he couldn't get us to get aggressive. We didn't sack him from the dialogue, and we actually tried to give him the space that he needed. So eventually he turned the situation into a positive direction. So it's very important for you to manage your body language, to manage your tone, and to stick to the objective of the dialogue throughout the process. Okay. So I'm going to move on just to recap on some of the facilitation tips. So as we mentioned, some of the key challenges that you might face is that irrelevant participant contribution. Here is where you interrupt the participant politely if needed, redirect the dialogue towards the main topic. You might sense some tension among participants during the dialogue. This is where you need to calm down the participants, remind them of the purpose of the dialogue and the importance of accepting and understanding each other's perspective. Avoid getting defensive. It's very important that you maintain your tone and avoid engaging in the discussion that goes out of control. And always try to redirect the dialogue to its main topic. And if needed, try to use people around you to come to your side and support you so that the person interrupting will feel disempowered. And if relevant participants have not showed up, it's important, first of all, that you plan properly. And sometimes we plan the dialogue around the time of those 4 to 5 key stakeholders that we cannot afford not having in the dialogue. So if we know they are busy during a specific time, we don't do the dialogue at that time because we want to make sure that these people attend. And of course, sometimes we organize follow-up conversations or mini policy dialogues that happen after the actual dialogue, where we brief those people about the output from the dialogue and we try to take it forward with them. And of course, sometimes you run out of time. This is where it's important for you to always be punctual and apologize if you have to go or exceed the dialogue duration. So this is just a recap on some of the key facilitation tips to keep in mind when you want to facilitate the dialogue. And as I mentioned, once the dialogue is over, we typically prepare something called a dialogue summary, where we summarize the key discussions and deliberations that happened and took place during the dialogue. But we do not mention names. So we do not say that the minister said so or the healthcare professional said so. It's a general discussion. It's a general summary of the key discussion. And this summary, it can serve as a roadmap for how to move forward with tackling the priority issue based on the deliberations and the agreements that took place during the dialogue. And we send this summary to all participants, maybe 2 weeks after the dialogue. And where needed, we follow up with key participants accordingly.
So again, this is more of a document that provide more of the next step. It's a clear roadmap. Some of the things that was agreed upon in the dialogue, along with who will be engaged or responsible to actually move it forward. And if you see this slide, this is where also there will be some follow-up that we do. Sometimes in K2P, we do something called the post-dialogue survey. We actually do more of, we follow up with them to see with the key stakeholders. Okay, can you tell us what you have done differently over the last 6 months? What are the things? Of course, in some cases where we had immediate decisions, we've seen the impact in 1 or 2 weeks, but sometimes they are topic that takes longer time. Sometimes requires a lot of work related to preparing to legislation. Others, it's all dependent on the topic. I think what Rasha is trying to say here, particularly, that is very important not to leave it hanging. Make sure that you document the whole process, have a clear dialogue summary that set up at least more articulate what has been agreed and the roadmap, and also some follow-up that will be done as a result. Holly, you had your hands up.
Yeah, it's a quick question, just to, I mean, maybe for myself, since I'm also learning in this process. For the scenario where you said most of the participants come around the table, but they did not read the document.
No, yeah, some cases where they sometimes they didn't have time to read it. Yeah. That's why we have different strategy. One of them is we give them, as Rasha mentioned, give them 10-15 minutes. Okay, before we start, can you skim it? At least look at the key messages page, which is 1 page, or the executive summary 3 page, at least can give you a sense. And then we give them, and the other option, we do animated videos. You'll see now in the data visualization session, we will give you. Sometimes we transfer the whole document into a small 4 or 5 minutes video, animated video about the problem, the causes, options, so people can easily understand, even if they haven't read it. And in addition to that, we put some slides on the important section. So basically, when it comes to problem statement, we put it in a slide in front of them. We keep reminding them, this is what you already include in the LRB policy. Can you comment on it? Can you reflect on this? Whatever. So we use different strategies. So even if they haven't read, they will be able to actually get at least acquainted with evidence that we already put from the in the document. To answer your question, Holly?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay.
And
Because
again,
the worst thing is to discuss in a dialogue meeting with people that they haven't read it, because it will end up with, I believe, when I think, people will forget that, and then we'll start making those decisions the usual way. So we use different tactics, plan A, plan B, plan C, just to make sure that whatever plan would fit, at the end, people will be at least acquainted with the evidence.
And one important thing again is to send it at least 2 weeks before the dialogue, so people will have enough time to read it. So don't send it if the dialogue is on Friday, don't send it on Thursday. Send it at least 2 weeks. So before I move into the next section, I just want to pause to see if you have any questions related to the dialogue. Otherwise, we will move into the data visualization and role of media in policymaking. Any final remarks before we start with session 14?
Yes, Satya.
Yeah, just to say, I think it should be clearly realized by everyone that facilitation is definitely quite a specialized task, very specialized art, and not everyone can do it. And the criticality of finding a good facilitator to facilitate a process is very crucial. I've been to some meetings where they, those guys are just pure professional facilitator. It doesn't matter what the topic is. They really study the topic very well, but it is the pure facilitation, conflict resolution, managing the time, etc., that they do is very, very good. So all to say that normally in most meetings, they make somebody senior to moderate or somebody to facilitate just like that. That's not very good. When you have an important policy brief, which is going to make the policy of the country, they should really think carefully of who to get as a facilitator. And it's worth investing in that almost to say that, get a good facilitator who you can invest in. Sometimes it's just not worth it. Thanks.
I agree with that. Thank you. Very important. Make it or break it, actually.
Okay,
great.
you.
If no further question, Rasha, shall we go to the Clara, please?
Yes,
and
so
then we'll go to
I'm gonna start by sharing a short video. It's around 14 minutes, which provides a brief overview of data visualization by our colleague, Clara Abu Samra. And then we will have an open discussion with our colleague, Rayan Nasruddin, who joined the call. Thank you, Rayan, for making the time. So Rayan will follow up, and then she will provide a brief session on media and how you can prepare a communication plan for your briefs. So I'm going to start by sharing the video.
Welcome, Rayan.
Thank you, Dr.
Rayan has been a communication person leading the work at K2P, and now she's a communication advisor as well. Maybe, Rasha, you want to stop sharing? Oh, okay.
So let me know, please, if you can see the video.
We still see the slide, Rasha.
What about now?
I think we're seeing it coming.
Okay.
Can you play it? Can you play it and expand the screen, please? Yeah, in the middle, Rasha.
In the middle.
What do you mean in the middle?
In the middle,
the play button.
The play button.
Yeah.
And expand.
Today we're going to be talking about.
Expanded, Rasha.
Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about data and information visualization and infographic development and dissemination.
Is it clear? Can everyone?
I'm Clara Abu Samra. I'm an instructor of public health at the American University of Beirut and an evidence lead specialist at the Knowledge to Policy Center. So what is data visualization and information visualization? Data visualization is practically more of putting the data that you have, the data sets that you have in a visual format that would attract policymakers and stakeholders. This form of more of visualization would really make the data more understandable, easier to access, easier to understand, easier to act upon. When we talk about data visualization, we talk about Hans Rosling. Hans Rosling once said that few people will appreciate the music if I just show them the notes. Most of us need to listen to the music to understand how beautiful it is. But often that's how we represent statistics. We just show the notes, we don't play the music. Working with statistics is quite hard. But think about it. Once you provide a statistic to a policymaker or stakeholder, if you don't provide more of an understanding to it, a discussion section to it, how will they be able to understand the data statistics that you have if they don't have skills in more of translating this data into effective policy change and decision making? This is exactly what Hans Rosling was saying. We often just write the notes, but we don't play the music. And that's what data visualization will be doing for us. Data visualization started with John Slow in the cholera outbreak in 1854. First of all, people thought that cholera was spread by air. What he provided is another hypothesis. He mentioned that actually the cholera was spread by water through the sewage dump into rivers and cesspools. And this contaminated the water, which provided the outbreak. What he did was he talked to locals and took data from hospitals and public records. And then he mapped out the data into more of this map that you're seeing right now. It was a dotted map that he illustrated. If we look at it very clearly, we notice that the data is concentrated in one area, or more of the cases are concentrated in one area. If we look even deeper, you notice that there is a pump in this area. So after that, what they did is they opened up the pump and they noticed that there was a diaper that was infected with cholera, which infected the water that was transported through the pump. And this has led to the outbreak. This was a breakthrough in science, truly more of reformulating the hypothesis which cholera was transported through air, that is, was actually transported through water. And this is what data visualization started and more of provided as a starting point to understand the notions around us, understanding data and information, and understanding more of acting upon those data. So why do we need data visualization? We need to visualize because it facilitates the comprehension of complex analysis and patterns. It shows patterns and connections. So if there's an increase in a certain aspect in time of a certain data, this will be shown. It allows active support of data-driven quality improvement, and it's less time consuming. So if you provide a data set to a policymaker with a lot of numbers, a lot of data, a lot of statistics going on, the probability is that it will take more time for the stakeholder to read through and understand the data than providing more of a visual format where the data is directly understandable. So there are two common uses for data visualization. One is exploration, where you're trying to answer a question, and one is explanation, where you're more of explaining or persuading people of a certain notion. In the case of John Snow, what he was trying to do is he mapped out on the dotted map the different cases because he was trying to explore the reason behind this outbreak. But he also used this map, the dotted map and the data visualization, to persuade the policymakers and stakeholders that cholera is transported through water and not air. So let's have a quick exercise. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer to have data provided more of in a table format, where life expectancy is a separate format, income is in a separate table format? Or do you prefer to have the data provided in this notion? This was more of developed in Gapminder, which is also initially founded by Hans Rosling. And here, if you notice, on the x-axis, we've got the income. On the y-axis, you've got life expectancy. You've got the transport through time also when you play the data. If you notice on the right side, you've got the coloring of the different world regions, and you can also select or deselect the region that you have. And just to mention that the size of the bubble is the size of the population in different countries. This is what data visualization provides. It provides a quick way for you to understand the data in a visually appealing way. So let's talk about different data visualization modalities. We've got infographics. In the infographics, you use icons, usually colors, to portray the data, and also numbers and text to portray data in a visually appealing way. As it says, it's an information, info, and graphic, which is a visual. There are also graphs or interactive or non-interactive graphs. This example is from one of the platforms that we have developed, which is the Health System Eye. And we got data from the National Cancer Registry in Lebanon and portrayed it in an interactive graph where you can select or deselect the cancer type, choose on what basis do you want to portray the data, and so on. There are also maps, which are also called chloropleth maps. And this, for example, portrays the distribution of primary healthcare centers in Lebanon. The color coding represents the number of primary healthcare centers there is in the different regions. There is also animations. So in the animations, you can also utilize infographics in the animation, but usually in animation, it's more cartoonic. The type of writing that you utilize or the font is a bit cartoonic when you utilize that. There are also reportages, and this is something that we usually see a lot in the news, where a story is portrayed in a filmed format. Sometimes in data visualization, we use more of a combination of the different types. So you might see a reportage with some animation in it, infographics portrayed in it. So it might be also combined. So how did we come about working on data visualization? We actually portrayed more of implemented an assessment study or more of a needs assessment to identify and define the best modalities to visualize and to disseminate timely health data and information. And what we did is we developed data visualizations, including infographics, reportage, animation, and text was more of utilized as a control, and showcased this to stakeholders and policymakers. And the results was that less than half of the researchers and policymakers were satisfied with the way health data or evidence is communicated to them. Researchers and policymakers believe that data visualization could help policymakers in assessing and accessing, and using health data and or evidence in policies, decisions, and recommendations. And text and infographics were combined main preferences for portraying data, because in case the discussion was that in case they needed more information, they can go back to the text. So let's talk a bit more about infographics. Common infographic mistakes. You can't imagine how much mistakes can be done, but we'll have a quick look at that and I'll tell you exactly some mistakes and showcase things where for you not to do when you're developing infographics. So let's look at this infographic. We notice that it is too crowded. There's a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of variables. I would not suggest that you develop an infographic in that way, because it would truly not make it understandable and will not attract attention. It's just too much. This is another example. The coloring is very nice. The font is amazing. But when it comes to the pie chart in the middle, it does not add up. Please make sure when you're portraying more of a whole system or a whole pie chart, for example, that the numbers add up to 100. This is another example. You notice that the data of the graph is skewed a bit. In this case, we can't really tell if the numbers in 1995 and 1997 are actually the same, or the numbers are higher in 1995. Try to avoid using more of skewed graph, because they will really not tell the data the right way. How to create an awesome infographic. This is one of the best examples. So if we look at that infographic, we notice that there are a lot of colors that really don't add up together. The text is more of italic and cursive. When you're trying to create an awesome infographic, please make sure that it is an awesome infographic that really looks nice, it's attractive, the color is attractive, the font that you use is also attractive. So let's talk right now about different data visualization or infographic programs. For example, there's Pictochart. We use a lot Pictochart because it's very user-friendly. The icons are there, the colorings are directly accessible. We've developed a few infographics on that, and it's for free. You can also develop infographics on Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. There's a program called Data Wrapper. It supports development of floor plan maps, such as the one we have on the screen right now. It's also very user-friendly and for free. Now, the upgrade for the utilization of that will cost, but you can more of have trials on that for free. Other programs include Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. Another program is Gapminder or Tableau. This example is from Gapminder. It's for free. It creates interactive charts. The only downside is that you cannot integrate your own data into that. You will utilize, or you need to utilize, the data sets that they have already integrated into the system. Tableau is a downloadable application that you can download on your laptop or computer and integrate your personal data on that, the data sets that you have. The only downside of that is that it costs a lot of money. For animation, you can use VideoScribe. It's very user-friendly, easy to use, and it's also for free. So finally, we will reach the final slide. I want you to look at those two circles. What colors do you see those circles? I'm just going to pause for a few seconds for you to be able to look into those circles. Now look at the X's in the circles. What colors do you see the X's? So we've got two circles, each of which has two X's in them. Okay, now let's see what will happen. You will notice that the X's are of the same color. This truly represents the data sets that you have. Your data set and the context that you put it will allow policymaker to comprehend it. Whatever context that you put it will result more of a decision comprehended, or a notion or information comprehended in a certain way. Please make sure to utilize data visualization as one of the knowledge uptake more of processes for your policy briefs and briefing notes and knowledge translation products, because it's extremely helpful in informing stakeholders and policymakers of what kind of information you are using. We have used this in policy dialogues. We have used this in the knowledge translation products. We have integrated it into the different sections in knowledge translation product, and it was extremely helpful. So I hope you enjoyed today's session, and looking forward for your questions if you have any, and for your knowledge uptake plans. Thank you so much, and we'll talk then.
Thank you, Clara. Thanks. This is again just more of a demonstration a little bit about sometimes we in the evidence policy we do some data visualization, but also we use of a lot of those during the policy dialogue meeting, where we actually bring some graphics, visualization, animated videos, to say a story, to tell a story to people, to make it easy for them to understand, particularly that some people might not be able to read all the material that you already put. So the easier, the simpler way of sending it the message to, again, let them hear the music, not the noise, and let them really reflect on what they are really understanding. I think this is very important. So I'm sure that's something more of a reminder for you to keep this in mind at some point. We're not expecting now in the drafts that you are working on that you're going to put data visualization, but something for you to consider when you take it forward to the next step. Rayan, shall we go to you? Maybe Rasha, if you can stop sharing, and maybe we can go to Rayan, if you can give her the if she can share from her end. Rayan, do you have slides?
Yes. Hi, Doctor. Hi,
yes,
everyone.
Hi.
I will be sharing my screen right away.
Fantastic. So here a little bit more, Rayan has a lot of experience in media. She has been engaged and worked, and a lot of work has been done with media through Rayan. She has a lot of experience on that. So Rayan, over to you.
Thank you, Doctor. So hi, everyone. My name is Rayan Nasruddin. I'm a K2P Center affiliate for media relations. And today we'll be discussing more based on your policy dialogue, how you can conduct it in a way that the media can be engaged in, definitely after the dialogue, as Dr. Fadi mentioned earlier. This is also to highlight that the media is and will play a very important role in your policy making process. It depends on each context, definitely, but here we can share a few tips and tricks, do's and don'ts on how to communicate with media effectively when it comes to evidence and research. So first of all, if I want to take from the concept of knowledge translation, definitely that you were already exposed to, it is a dynamic and interactive process that includes the synthesis, dissemination, and exchange and application of knowledge. So if I want to pause on these three words, then the synthesis, dissemination, and exchange, definitely they all come from communication. It's how I create and I form the evidence that I have, how I disseminate them with the people that need to know about these evidence, and the exchange of knowledge from one part to another. These are all parts of communication that the media definitely is a huge part in. But what does it take? Like theoretically, this sounds very easy, but on the ground, what does it take to actually and effectively communicate this knowledge in an efficient way, in a clear way that will cause the minimum opportunity for miscommunication or misunderstanding? And to communicate effectively, definitely there are different aspects and different players. We definitely have the social media part and we have the mainstream media part. So first of all, let's try to understand social media with a simple cup of coffee. If I want to use coffee on different platforms, social media platform, how would it be any different? And this difference will help us understand the role of each platform, and it will help you understand on which platform you should be focusing your efforts. If I want to go to Twitter, I can simply say I am drinking #coffee. It's very short, it's very straight to the point. It exactly reflects what I'm doing right now or what I'm thinking. It is a simple and clear way to communicate a very timely news. As for Facebook, we can say, I like coffee. Facebook usually is a very interactive platform. Other people, let's say on this status, they can come and comment on your post saying, yes, I like coffee too. And maybe you can have a conversation on the type of coffee that you like. So this is what Facebook is, a very interactive platform where you can post your thoughts and ideas. On Instagram, and definitely the scope of all of these platforms is changing by the day. So definitely what can be done on Twitter might be done for Facebook and vice versa. For Instagram, we can say here's an artistic picture of me drinking coffee, since Instagram is based on visual content, whether it's a video, it's a picture, it's an infographic. So definitely use Instagram if you have the potential to create visuals that will be appealing and that can help visualize your information much better, like the ones we previously saw in the previous session. And for LinkedIn, I am good at drinking coffee. So LinkedIn definitely is the most professional, career-oriented, if I can say, platform. It definitely helps you showcase your skills, showcase your efforts, your work, your corporate or professional life. LinkedIn is definitely your platform. And to showcase everything, one of them can be the products that you are working on. LinkedIn can definitely be a good platform on which you can highlight the process in which you worked through and the results that you reached. But if you want to focus on Twitter and Facebook and the best practices for both platforms, usually they are somehow similar, but definitely there are some differences that can make or break your social media presence. For Twitter, definitely you need to tweet at least from 1 to 4 times a day. Twitter is a very interactive platform. The lifespan of a tweet is very short, so you always need to be up to date, active, interactive as well on your Twitter account. As for Facebook, sometimes it's only enough to update your timeline once a day. That should be enough for Facebook. For Twitter, usually your followers are interested in a specific niche, let's say, or a specific field. That's why they are your followers. So let's say if you're a knowledge translation center, let's say, The people who will be following you are people who have similar interest in knowledge, in data, and research. So this niche is very specific, and you need to cater your content to your followers. As for Facebook, definitely you might have a wider pool of interest, followers with wider pool of interest. They can interact with different types of content, different information that you'll be sharing, and different content that you'll be sharing on your platform. For Twitter as well, it's most effective during working hours and during weekdays, while for Facebook, it's most effective after working hours and on weekends, because the nature of the content that you might be posting on Facebook might be of a lighter content, again, very diversified, that people might feel related to or interested in during their off time from work. And finally, for Twitter, it is perfect for breaking and timely news. And definitely, if I can give like a simple example of the stampede that happened in Seoul a few weeks ago, definitely you found the breaking news on Twitter and not on Facebook. Facebook may be later posted on the event that happened, but for breaking timely news, Twitter is definitely the go-to platform. If I want now to discuss mainstream media rather than social media, definitely mainstream media, we need print, TV channels, radio stations, and print newspapers. While some of us might think that, yes, these are way last year or not a good source or platforms to share my work as a researcher, mainstream media still has its role and can still be beneficial to you and to your work. But the trick is how to use the mainstream media in the best way possible. For K2P, one of the ways that we were able to use the mainstream media was to do a media review, and you can do it as well. A media review can be a weekly, a daily, or a monthly synopsis of articles from selected media outlets. It can be print newspapers, it can be online websites, it can be TV channels or radio stations. The review that will be weekly, daily, or monthly based on your frequency should focus on specific topics in local, regional, and international media outlets, again, based on your interest and what do you want to get out of these media reviews. Once gathered and once analyzed, a media review can highlight clearly the different framing of one story in different contexts. So let's say the same story, after analysis of a media review, you can check how it was tackled differently in local, let's say, newspapers, and regional newspapers, and international newspapers. However, the media review should answer the 5 Ws, the holy 5 Ws, and these Ws are the basis of any journalistic interaction with the media, and for you to be able to develop any media content that you need to disseminate with the journalists that you are in contact with. The 5 Ws are, first of all, what is happening? What am I talking about? What is the event that I am doing? What is the product that I am launching? You need to answer what is happening, what am I talking about? The second W is the who. Who are the sides involved in this event or this topic? In our case, let's say if we have a policy brief that we are publishing, who are the authors, let's say, or who should be involved in this policy brief, who I should be like directing to, or to whom should I be talking? The third W is where the event is taking place or on which platform. You need to communicate that clearly. If an event is happening, let's say in the MENA region, I should be clear. If it's happening in Asia, I should be clear. If it's happening in a specific city, I should be clear about that as well as the when and the time frame that I should be setting within my communication with the media when the event is taking place. At what time of the day? Is there a specific context, timely context that should be flagged? We need to be clear about this as well. And the final W is why. Why is it happening now? And the why is very important to give context of the event or of the product that I am launching. This context can showcase the importance of this event or this product that I am currently working on. Yeah. So the K2P media review is called K2P Press Tracing, and it aims at informing about public health topics reported in Lebanese and regional newspapers. This is the aim of the K2P Press Tracing that we've been working on, like, I think for more than 5 years now. We gather all of the topics relevant to public health in local newspapers in Lebanon and regional. And through monthly analysis, we can compare and see how stories have been shifting from one month to another, from one outlet to another. If any story that was flagged, let's say, during the month of August, let's say it died in November, why did it happen? What newspaper used to talk about this issue and stopped talking about this, and why? The results of the K2P press tracing that you can also develop on your own are very important to flag any emergencies or any hot topic that is emerging in your context or in your country. To develop your own press tracing, there are 3 easy steps that you can follow. Definitely, first of all, you need to choose the outlets that you'll be monitoring. Do you want to monitor TV channels? If yes, are they local in your country? Are they regional or international? Same goes for radio stations. If you want to monitor newspapers, which newspapers? You can pick 5, let's say, or you can pick 10. It depends on the goal of your, or the objective of the media review that you're doing. And same goes for blogs. Also, you need to choose the timeline. Like, do I want to do the media review for the past month or for the past year or for the past 2 years? It's up to you to decide based on the objective of the media review that you are doing. The second step is to narrow your search by interest and keywords. Definitely, you cannot search for everything manually. You need to limit your interest and you need to specify your keywords. So let's say if you want to tackle public health could be considered as narrow, but still you can specify and pick 5 to 10 keywords that you want to manually monitor, so you can gather all of the information and all of the coverage relevant to these keywords. And the final step, after you gather all of the coverage that you have from the specified media outlets and during the specified timeline, you need to do your synthesis and your analysis to be able to get the good outcome or the needed outcome from your media review. Now, the other part of engaging with media, and this is where it gets more interesting, especially after a policy dialogue. Like, yes, I did the policy dialogue, it was very beneficial. Now, how do I communicate this with the public? How do people should know about my efforts or a new policy that I am suggesting or a new research that I am launching? To do so, definitely you need to go to journalists. Journalists are your medium person between you as a researcher and the public. And they are the only way that can, or the only people that can help you reach the public in a very clear way. But to understand journalists first, what is needed? Based on K2P's experience with the media since K2P's launch, it was within K2P's belief that the media should be an ally from the start. And throughout our engagement with the media over the years, from K2P Center, we were able to specify 3 main topics or put 3 main questions that it was our job at every time we have an interaction with the media, we need to answer these questions to guarantee that we are disseminating a clear message. Question 1 was, what journalists want from researchers? So we as researchers, we need to communicate with the journalists, but at the same time, we need to understand journalists from their point of view, what they want from us. Question 2 is what journalists need for effective health and social reporting, because definitely journalists are not researchers and they're not supposed to be aware of the very detailed research field. However, they must have like the basis knowledge on how to report on health and social issues in a very evidence-based manner. And question 3 is what the public needs to know from health and social policies. So question 3 is more about the public, the end audience or the main audience. How do I get them to know what I know in a very simple way? Because we need to, definitely, it's a common knowledge that the public needs to receive the message in a very simple way, in a very straightforward way. So how do I get to do that from my side as a researcher? To answer these three questions, we were able to find like a middle or a base ground answers for all of these questions. First of all, or the first concept is vulgarization. What does it mean? It means that I need to speak my audience's language. If I'm a researcher and I have a topic about a new epidemic, let's say, I need to know who is this epidemic affected, or who are the key stakeholders or decision makers that are related to this epidemic or that can solve this epidemic. These people are my audience and I need to know how to talk to them. That's why once I know that, I can know how I can speak to them. So that's very important, and that's one of the main components of the vulgarization concept. The second point is to lose the jargon. That means to lose any specific or big keywords or technical keywords that might cause misunderstanding or confusion to my audience. I need to drop off all of these keywords and use words again and language that I'm sure my audience will understand. As you mentioned earlier, the journalists are the key person that will help me reach my public. That's why I need to make sure that the journalist is understanding first what I'm talking about, so they'll be able to translate that knowledge to the public. And that's why I need to address the reporter or the journalist that I'm communicating with as if I'm addressing a child in a very simple way, in a very straightforward way, and with clear words. And finally, for vulgarization, we need to give examples. Examples can help the journalist and the public to visualize the issue more, make it more clear. And again, the whole point of vulgarization is to reduce the chances of miscommunication or misunderstanding. The second concept is to respect the proximity laws. What do we mean by proximity laws? We have the historical law, and that is related to time frames. So what is relevant now might not be relevant in 2 days or might not be relevant next week. That's why it's very important to choose when to talk about a certain issue and picking the right moment. You can be working on a product for over a year, but when it's ready, it might not be the right context to launch this product, because you know that there are probably other concerns to your stakeholders and the decision makers that you are addressing, and they won't be interested in your story. So you need to pick the perfect moment in which you have to pitch your product or your messaging. The second law is the geographical law. Definitely what is relevant to us, let's say here in Lebanon or in the Middle East, might not be relevant to you in your country and in your context. That's why I need to know my audience geographically. Who am I talking to? And based on that, I can pick also the outlet. If I have, like here from Lebanon, if I have a story that is relevant on an international level, definitely I need to go to an international outlet, media outlet, rather than a local one. And the third law is the psychosocial law. Again, this puts the whole story in context, because as Dr. Fadi was mentioning, data, you should tell a story. And to put that emotional side of the numbers and the data and the research that we might consider sometimes as a raw material, we need to add a psychosocial part of them to give them life, to make them relevant to people who are eventually are human beings as well. And when we talk about health issues, it's very easy sometimes for us to find that line where we can be relevant to other people or to our audience by adding the psychosocial aspect to the product or to the policy brief that we have. And the final concept that we are tackling now in the how to communicate with the journalist is, again, and I will reiterate the importance of this concept, respecting the 5 Ws. These 5 Ws can give all of the details needed for the journalist about the message that you are disseminating. Who are the people involved, who should know about this, when, give it, again, a historical law, make it relevant in its time, where that's respecting the geographical law again, and why is it relevant to the people around me? What am I talking about, and why is it important now to be talking about this issue? Finally, here are, if you have, let's say, after your policy dialogue, an interview with a journalist. What are the do's and don'ts when interacting with a journalist? That can be very interesting, and it's quite an experience to be discussing your message or your, let's say, product or the outcome of your dialogue with a journalist, because again, they are we can consider them as outsiders that needs to know what we are doing, as if we are telling the story ourselves. And that's why we need to address them again as if we're talking to a child in a very simple, straightforward way. So for the do's, definitely you need to define one essential message. That can be a hard task because we might consider that everything we discussed during the policy dialogue was very important. However, a good communication person can help you identify what is the essential message, one or two essential messages that you need to disseminate and your public needs to know about. Second, do's definitely is to apply the 5 W's rule. I cannot stress on this point enough. It's very important to be clear on the 5 W's with the journalist. Third point is to address in a popular language, because again, we cannot assume as researchers that the journalist will understand everything that we're talking about. So we need to be very clear with them, to lose the jargon and to use words and keyword sentences, languages that we are sure they will understand. And finally, repeat your message. Repeat that one or two essential messages that you focused on and use them in different ways, in different contexts with the journalist, just to make sure that no misunderstanding or miscommunication will occur. However, for the don'ts, definitely do not expect to read an advanced copy of the report or to see a not aired, let's say, version of your report, because newsrooms can be somehow a messy place to work in. They always deal with emergencies. And some journalists might take it as a personal issue if you ask to read a report before it's published. It can sometimes show a lack of trust in the journalists that you're working with, and you don't need to go there. The second point is, do not be surprised by misquotes and unfortunate contexts. Again, because we're human beings at the end of the day, and miscommunication might occur. However, the whole point of this brief presentation and your work within your organizations and centers is to try to avoid miscommunication as much as possible. However, no one can guarantee that misquotes and unfortunate context might not or will not happen. You need to be very flexible in this and have the ability that if you see a misquote or an unfortunate let's say, framing of your story, to be able to pick up the phone and tell the journalist, oh, I think that we had a misunderstanding. Please, we want to clarify this point. And most of the journalists now have this ability to change what they wrote. So this is like the type of relationship you want to build with the journalist that you want to deal with. The third point is, don't expect to read about your news in the next day. Again, newsrooms deal with emergencies, and sometimes a certain event somewhere in the world can take all of the attention, and your story might be put at the end of the news bulletin, let's say, or pushed till the next day. This is very normal to happen. However, you need to follow up with the journalists that you've been working with to make sure that your story will not go into the drawer. However, even if it's pushed for 1 day or 2, it will be published at the end. And the final note, and that's very important, never speak off record with the journalist. Everything you want to discuss, make sure that it's on record and stick to the messages that you identified, and try not to gossip about other things, because sometimes journalists will try to take words from you off record. However, they will make a whole story out of your off record notes. So be very aware of these tricks of journalists, and you need to be as well very cooperative with them. If they try to take you off track, you need to be aware that no, this is not what I was talking about. Try to get them back on the essential message that you were discussing.
Hi, Rayyan, I'm just cautious about time, so
Yeah, this is the final point. Again, to summarize everything that we've been discussing about communicating with journalists, at K2P Center, we have the media bite. And the media bite usually comes before the policy brief. We disseminate it to the media. They get a look at it. We do the policy dialogue, and then we follow the policy dialogue with a press release to the same journalist. So now the journalists have a whole time frame of our activity based on a specific topic or related to one specific topic. The media type answers the 5 Ws. It has what is the main problem that this study or this research is trying to resolve, who is the population affected, or who are the stakeholders involved, when did the study take place, which country was it conducted in, and that is the where. Why did the author decide to address this issue right now? And that's the context that you need to be very clear on, and how can it be resolved? Because definitely your policy dialogue, your policy brief can have recommendations that you might need to flag in your media bite. So basically that's it from my end.
Fantastic.
And
thank you, Ryan.
Thank you
Superb
so
as always. Fantastic. I think, I think these are they are a critical element that you already mentioned, and it's good for the teams, for the 4-country teams, to realize that at some point there will be some engagement of the media, sometime prior to the dialogue, sometime after the dialogue. Sometimes you put the press release you want to get out. Usually we do press release after every dialogue. We put something in the media, and sometimes we get interviews on TV, on radio, etc., on social media. So you decide. Well, I think the message you're sending to all the teams is you decide, take advantage of time, particularly when there are certain events globally at the national level. Sometimes we can use it as the leverage to push for certain messaging, particularly related to certain priorities or areas. So all these are tips that we've learned from the science as well as from the experience of where to engage. Yes, we take media as an ally, an advocate sometime, but we be careful when to engage and when not to engage media, and what type of messages we need to get out. We want to make sure that they actually shape public opinion, but also using and informed by evidence. So that's why we try to get to simplify it. And this is what Ryan is talking about, which is whether the media bite, we make it very simple. What would be that, few lines you want to send the media that could be really, more of a catchy message that they actually can disseminate, etc. So I'm hoping, thank you again, Ryan, fantastic, superb presentation, very helpful, and for sharing the experience that you have. And I hope for the country teams that this is quite informative for you. We're not expecting you to do a media communication plan as part of this exercise. Although part of our mentorship program, we allow and we ask them to do a communication plan, but you're not being asked to do so. But we want you to think about that, because at some point, if you want to get this out, engage, there's a lot of things that can go beyond just the usual office work and looking at searching evidence and populating it in a document. There's a lot of engagement that you need to do with stakeholders, and sometimes media could be a proxy that could help and advocate for whatever options that you are really putting forward. So thank you, Ryan, again. I know you're busy, so feel free if you want to, unless there is a specific question to Ryan, please raise it now before she leaves, just because she has other commitment. I think clearly your presentation was very clear, Ryan. So I think it's
yes. Just want to say thank you, Dr. Fadi, and good luck to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye. So I think what we have, sorry, and we took a little bit more time than planned, because this is a very important, very important webinar, that to bring it all together, bring you all the elements about this. So what, from a dialogue to visualization to media, these are important that come hand in hand in terms of the process. Now I know we still have around less than 30 minutes, and I want to make sure what we want you to a little bit to, first of all, if you have any question for us. Second, the way we plan for today is we want you to give you a time to reflect on the stakeholders. So you've listened to us, you've seen the how policy dialogue can be prepared for, how we run it. But the most important thing is that who are the stakeholders you want to invite? Now, all of you now have very focused problem statement. You have a clear title and you have a draft. Now, if we ask you, okay, if you want to do a dialogue in 1 month from now or 2 weeks from now, who are the stakeholders that you want to invite based on the learning that we get from today's session, in terms of diverse representation, government, non-government, etc., etc. Who do you think in your context, who are the stakeholders that you want to invite for a policy dialogue? So we want you to think about that, and we want to give you also instruction for next time. So in November 24, it will be the last webinar, and the last webinar again, it will be run by you, not us. So we'll be listening and we'll be commenting and reflecting. So that's why we will be in preparation for that. We will be sending you a template, a presentation template that is really empty and with headlines only. And we're going to ask you, okay, you have 10 minutes to present to stakeholders, to policymakers about what you have done, from why you're working on this topic, to problem, to causes, to option, to implementation consideration. So you want to make a pitch, a communication pitch. We do a lot of personalized debriefing to stakeholders. So how are you going to sell what you are actually worked on, and how you can really make the case for that? So next time on November 24, each team will have to present. So we'll give you the template. You have to populate it. We don't need to see it before the session. Just surprise us during the session. And you will have each team, the lead will have 10 minutes, again, supported by the core group, to present to all of us. And then we'll give you feedback and comment to each of the 4 teams. So that's the plan for the next. So that's why please accelerate your work. You're almost towards the finish line now. Push on the finalizing of the outline for your evidence people policy, and try to populate it in a few presentation slides that we're going to send you, and be prepared to present it to all of us on November 24. I don't know if Sataya, you want to reinforce anything here from your end?
Yeah. So 1 second, let me put my video on also. Yeah, just to say, like we said that all of the countries are at different stages of finishing their writing. Okay, so in an ideal world, you would have finished your writing also by then. But allowing for the fact that maybe it's not a final finished writing piece that has got completed by the 24th, that doesn't matter. What is important is that all the templates you have filled up, your thinking is very clear, and you are able to articulate it through that presentation pitch that Fadi will be asking you to make. Okay, so whatever stage that you have reached at that point in time, in terms of writing, it's fine. Even at that stage, you will make a presentation based on whatever thinking you have put into that writing. Okay, the actual fine-tuning of the writing or looking for more evidence, etc., may not have got completed, but that's okay. All right. So we really would like to emphasize that be prepared to make a good pitch and involve all your other team members in making that pitch. Fadi, approximately how many slides you would expect, you think? Just
we'll prepare a template, but usually I don't expect more than 10 to 12 slides per each group. So usually, because again, this is what the messaging you want to get, because this is presentation to a minister, presentation to advisory board, presentation to stakeholders. Usually more than 10, 12 slides with more than 3 messages, people will will not follow.
Yeah, assuming 10 minutes, so approximately 10 slides. Okay, excluding the opening slide and the thank you slide. So work on that. So at this moment, even before Fadi, I'm jumping the queue here because this is slightly linked to some of the announcements we wanted to make. Should I leave the announcements till the end, or should I make it now? It seems
well, I think if you want, if we can, do you mind if we can give at least the teams only 10 minutes maximum to reflect on what they plan to present at least, and also who are the stakeholders that they think, if you want to do a dialogue, shall we give them, it will be short, if we can have a breakout room for only 10 minutes, unless you prefer not to, but maybe it's good for them to reflect. I think what we need to make sure now that the team are clear on the next step. So maybe they can speak together to make sure that they are clear on next step in terms of expediting the work on the outline and preparing for the presentation for November 24, and start thinking about who are the stakeholders. Now, we're not inviting those stakeholders for 24, but want them to think about if they want to take it to the dialogue level. Who are the people that really 10 minutes breakout room, if you don't mind. And then we can come around, in 10 minutes before 1 hour time, and then we can go with the announcement. Would that work? And I just want to make sure that everybody is clear on the next step. That's
okay. Fair enough. Yeah, and let there be a Uganda group, even though there are probably only 1 or 2 people there. We understand that. But go into your breakout group, Holly will be there, and Fadi and team also will visit that team. Okay, so yeah.
No, I just want to add, Satay, that for this breakout room, we won't be sharing any templates. So we want the participants just to discuss for 10 minutes, and then at the end of the 10 minutes, maybe they can each reflect 1 to 2 minutes in terms of how they plan to ensure that by the next session, they will have the policy brief outline ready. So this is the main purpose.
Fair enough. Okay.
So very short, focus. Please, once you go to breakout room, immediately the lead or the person that is chairing, please jump in. Make sure that tell us about what your plan in the next 2 weeks in terms of the outline for the presentations and for the stakeholder, and if you have any question. And then we can reconvene immediately after 10 minutes, because we don't have time. If we can have the final round of discussion, and Sataya will actually provide some announcement. Okay?
Okay. So Jiong, go ahead and let's break out into the 10-minute groups.
Welcome back, everyone. I think everybody has joined so far, or still waiting. I think everybody. We lost some people, I believe, before the breakout. So I think I was able to at least to look into, to visit two teams just because of the limited time. So do you have any question? Do you are the teams on board, at least clear on the next steps in terms of what is needed at this stage for November 24 and for the draft that you have to provide to us soonest within a week or so? Any questions on what is really required? We want to make sure that you're clear on how we will be proceeding at this stage. All clear? And we will send you soonest. We'll send you the template for the presentation that you will make as a simulation. So again, next webinar, there's no new material. The material will be from the one that you've already developed. It will be a simulation exercise where we're going to be the stakeholder policymakers, and you will be actually presenting to us, and making the case and selling of why we want to actually, take an action on this. And then we'll listen to you, we'll engage in discussion, give you feedback. We'll do some role playing so you can really prepare to do some tweaking to your final product. Sataya, over to you.
Thanks. Okay, so we are coming to the close of this session today. And thank you all for your participation and hard work. I just wanted to give you a heads up on some announcements that we would make that would help you. Okay, couple of things. So please give me your full attention. So one is on 24th, we will expect that all of you, all the 4 countries, would be able to make a presentation of about 10 minutes each based on the template that Fadi and his team will send you soon, so that you can make your pitch based on the close to final draft of your EVP, the evidence brief for policy. Now, the actual final writing may not have finished by then, but your thinking should be quite clear, and you would be able to put it into those 10 slides to make that pitch. So that will happen on 24th, okay? Now, acknowledging the fact that many of you have been working hard, and maybe to get a final finished written product, you may require a bit more time. So what we are doing is, in discussion with our donors, we have managed to make a submission to them saying that we would like to give the countries a little bit more time. So what we are going to do is, and they'll come back and say yes, but right now we've just made the submission, but we expect a sort of a no-cost extension, because originally this project was supposed to finish on November 30th, but that's why we wanted everything to finish by then, but we are extending the time a bit, and mostly because this pilot is absolutely critical, and we want your documents and your evidence brief for policies to be good products, okay? Even though this is your sort of part of a pilot initiative, but that's okay, because based on this, Fleming Fund Phase 2 ideas to take this methodology, et cetera, to other countries is going to be based on it. So what we're doing is, you will make a presentation on 24th. We expect a pretty good draft that you might have made by then. But to give a final and completely finished written document, we are extending the time for that final writing only till 30th December. Okay. So instead of this written final document to be on 30th November, we are giving you 4 weeks more, so that the final written document will be available on 30th of December. Actually, we want you to give it in by 25th, which is Christmas Day. By then you send it, the final written document, and we'll have 1 week between 26th and 30th to do some final, comments on that if you wish, so that you can have a really polished product by the end of this year. And that will be good, and you can start the new year with a bang. So all to say that you will make the presentation on 24th November on the work you have done so far, and then you will get some additional 3 to 4 weeks to give a finished, polished, written product, which we can share with other countries, etc., etc. Now, to tell you 2 more important things. So this document by 30th December, ideally submitted by 25th, so there could be a week of exchange back and forth, and 30th December we finish it. During this period, in the month of December, even though Fadi's and team's commitment was also till only end November, the team will have agreed kindly to do a little bit of more support and more interaction with all the countries during the month of December, even though it's beyond the time that we had taken from them, to support you to finish this product. Not too much time, but focused, limited amount of time, let's say 1 or maximum 2 rounds of interaction bilaterally over the month of December to see through and finish this document, so that at least you have a final finished product which is you can be proud of. Then what we are going to do is, in January, and please try and note this, we'll send it by email also, this information. We would like to convene a series of focus group discussions with all the 4 countries, some key informant interviews with specific people like the team leads and some of the other people of all the 4 countries, including the faculty and others, and also some visitors who have been with us throughout, like from WHO here and there and everywhere. What we'll do is, we are going to have a series of discussions to understand better, for you to help us assess this pilot. What we want to get out of that will be the lessons that are coming out from this. So we expect you to discuss with us some of the critical challenges you have faced, some of the difficulties you have faced, but some of the good things that you've also found, and which you would like to say that, next time you do this, you should do this, change this, change that, so that the countries can engage better, and how it could be more useful for the countries, whether it is operations, whether it's logistics, whether it is the content, what more content can be added, what content can be removed. all that we'll be discussing. So it's an opportunity for you to help assess this. Okay. Now that will take place mainly in the week of 16th to 20th of January. Okay, 16th to 20th of January. And this will be preceded hopefully by a very brief online survey that we'll send to all participants, which we hope will be between 11th to 13th. We hope to have sent it to you. It'll be a short questionnaire, yes, no, or, you know, agree strongly, disagree strongly, etc. That kind of a questionnaire, which we want you to fill up and return to us. It will be an online one, so that can feed into the focus group discussions that we have. And that will constitute, and with us, actually what you will be doing is developing what would be, let's say, if you want to scale up, make a scale up model of this to take it to a whole bunch of other countries, what should be the methodology. Okay, so that is very crucial. So around 16th to 20th January is when we'll do these focus group discussions, key informant interviews. We'll send you the invitations. Please block your time. We need all of you, etc. And there will be an online survey before that. And finally, sometime towards the end of February, what we'll do is we'll be having a one-day event where you will get a chance. That will be the end of the phase one part of the radar project. We need 1 month to do all the administration to close the project, but we will have an event, online, virtual or hybrid, and we would like you to make, and it'll be an open invitation to everyone who has been associated with radar, all the 22 countries, where you can actually, you get an opportunity to directly present your work, and you will also be able to present your critique of how the pilot went for you and what you would like to see, etc., etc. That will be towards the end of February. So just to repeat once, your final written evidence brief for policy must be completed, let's say 30th November, ideally by 30th December, ideally by 25th December, so that we get one last chance to kind of get some comments and feedback, and then we just send it to the graphic designer to make it look nice and pretty, etc., etc. And then we will tell you about the exact precise dates of the focus group discussions. We'll write to individual countries to set up those focus group discussions and the key informant interviews. We'll tell you about the dates for the online survey. And finally, we'll tell you about the one-day symposium that we'll have at the end of February, so that you can showcase your work yourself. I mean, you know, whatever work we are doing, it is your work that we'll be trying to showcase. Okay. So if there's any quick questions on this, I'm happy to answer before we just move to the polls, which will be our final thing. Any quick questions before we go for the polls?
Satta, thank you for your brief methodology about our work. I'm afraid I'm afraid about the date of 24th November, because you know it is 18 to 24th November. There is a World Antimicrobial Awareness. And as the national focal point, we have a lot of activities throughout the week. So that is a concern for us, that if we could present all of the core group members. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Does anyone else have the same concern? Just let me know right now. I'm aware of this, by the way. And I was wondering if anyone will bring it up, or should I bring it up?
Satan, I'm sorry, I have to leave just because I have a meeting at the hour. Apologies for that. So I'm sharing a meeting now, but this was a great day, and we'll follow up. Thank you.
Okay. No, just to say that this date of 24th, we might change, because it is the last day of the World Antibiotic Awareness Week, and we might have to do. I think Malawi also felt the same. And we'll let you know. It might be 29th, maybe Tuesday. It'll be a Tuesday.
Yeah, let me see. We'll not commit now until we see that, just to make sure that fits the schedule, but we'll follow up. Don't worry about it. Even if it will be postponed. Don't worry. Thank you.
Okay.
Uganda also indicated that they were heavily involved with the war.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. Okay, so it is decided now. We will change the date from 24th. It will not be 24th, but what date will it be? We'll let you know. Okay, we'll just have Fadi had to leave. We need his involvement first to give a suggest the actual date, but it will be within November. It will not go beyond November. That's for sure, because the first week of December we will be working on other things to submit our quarterly report, where we'll be reporting the finishing of all these training webinars, and we would like to complete this exercise within November. So we'll see whether to make it on 29th, 30th is too late, 29th, or should it be 25th, the Friday? Friday, some countries like Bangladesh, that is their weekend. We don't want to disturb them on their weekend. It's a Friday for them, but that's their weekend. So it might be the 29th. But I agree that 24th is a problematic one, because there are many things that are going to be coming to a peak in terms of World Antibiotic Awareness Week. Okay, so it's agreed it won't be on 24th, but we will see which date it is, but it will be within November. Okay, usually we don't try to keep anything on a Monday. That would be 28th. So probably 29th is what I would gun for. We'll check Fadi's calendar, and if he agrees, then off we go. Okay, Rasha, are you there still online?
Yes, Satya, I'm here.
Okay, so just bear this in mind also. We'll generate a few emails just to confirm this back to the countries as soon as possible. Okay, but
Okay, sure.
my guess is, if we all look at our calendars for 29th, if we can accommodate 29th, it will be great. 25th, I know, is a problem for some countries. We try not to have it on Mondays, so Tuesdays is the best, and that's 29th. Okay. So we'll just jump to the polls, and while Jiong brings up the polls, please, all of you who are here, please answer these. This is, as you know, it takes only 2 minutes. You fill in these, and after that, we'll just tell you to put all your cameras on, and we'll take a few screenshots. And we are thankful Bangladesh has sent us some of their photographs of the offline meetings that they've held, which is very exciting, and which we make use of when putting in our reports, and it's also for our records. And at the end of this whole exercise, we'll share all those photographs with you. So please go ahead and just complete the poll, so that we will then be able to just take the screenshots. So thank you very much for all your time. Once again, to tell you that the 24th one we will postpone, but we'll come back to you and let you know what date. Okay, but it won't be on 24th. We understand that it will be full of final World Antimicrobial Awareness Week events. Thank you very much for your time and all your hard work. Thanks.